In the vast, silent dark between the stars, there is an unseen ocean, a realm of pure energy born from the whispers of every soul, every dream, and every nightmare. It is a place without time, where the past and future bleed into an eternal now. A place where the very thoughts of mortals can take form and become real. This is the Immaterium, the Sea of Souls. To most of the uncounted trillions in the galaxy, it is a concept beyond understanding, a myth, a navigator's tale, or a heretic's fantasy. But to those who have glimpsed its impossible shores, it is the source of all power and the wellspring of all damnation. It is the chaos that churns beneath the fragile skin of reality, and from its depths, things stare back. Close your eyes, quiet your mind, and let us journey into that storm, to understand the true nature of the gods that call it home. Beyond the familiar stars and the cold, comforting emptiness of space, there lies another reality, a dimension that mirrors our own, yet follows none of its rules. This is the Immaterium, more commonly and fearfully known as the Warp. It is not a place you can reach with a ship in the conventional sense. It is a dimension of pure psychic energy, a boundless sea where the tides are emotions and the currents are thoughts. Sentient being in the material universe, the Materium as it is known has a reflection in this other place, a glimmer of soul, light in a roiling, endless storm. Imagine the Materium as a grand, silent hall, and in this hall, countless candles are lit. Each flame is the soul of a living creature. Now imagine a canvas hanging above this hall, and on this canvas, the heat and light from every candle create a swirling, vibrant, and chaotic painting. This painting is the Immaterium. It is a direct reflection of the collective consciousness of the galaxy. Hope, rage, love, despair, ambition, fear. These are not just feelings. In the Immaterium, they are the very substance of existence. They are the air, the water, and the earth of that impossible realm. This fundamental truth is what makes the Immaterium so paradoxical. It is both a vital tool for humanity and its single greatest existential threat, the Imperium of man. A galaxy spanning empire of 1,000,000 worlds would be impossible without it. The vast distances between star systems are too great to cross in a single lifetime. But by plunging into the Immaterium, a vessel can traverse the galaxy in a fraction of the time. Navigators, specially bred human mutants, use their third eye to perceive the currents of the warp, guiding ships through its non-Euclidean madness. Their guidepost is the Astronomicon, a psychic beacon of immense power, projected from the Golden Throne on Holy Terra by the Emperor of Mankind himself. Without this light, all travel through the Immaterium would be blind, a guaranteed descent into madness and death. But to enter the warp is to enter a realm where the laws of physics are a forgotten dream. Time does not flow in a straight line. A journey that feels like mere days to a ship, as crew could span centuries in the material world. A ship could arrive at its destination before it even departed. The very structure of a starship is under constant assault, not by physical force, but by the sheer wrongness of the dimension it inhabits. And the minds of its crew are even more vulnerable. The raw emotion that makes up the warp seeps through the hull, whispering into the minds of mortals, preying on their doubts and fears, promising power and delivering only insanity. The Immaterium was not always the terrifying, malevolent place it is in the 41st millennium. Ancient texts and fragmented Eldari myths speak of a time long before humanity's ascent, when the warp was a much calmer place. It was a tranquil sea, reflecting the simpler minds of the galaxy's nascent life forms. The currents were gentle, the psychic energies orderly, But as sentient races evolved, grew, and waged war, their increasingly violent and extreme emotions began to churn the sea. Fear of death, the rage of battle, the lust for power, the despair of loss, these powerful feelings poured into the immaterium, poisoning its currents. The greatest cataclysm to shape the warp was the war in heaven, a conflict of unimaginable scale between ancient, God, like races millions of years before the first humans looked to the stars. The raw, untamed psychic energies, unleashed during this war, scarred the immaterium forever. The collective psychic trauma of entire species dying in agony created whirlpools of perpetual misery. The focused hatred of warring gods carved canyons of rage through the once calm ether. The sea of souls was whipped into a perpetual, raging storm, and in this storm, things began to coalesce. Just as water vapor in the atmosphere gathers to form clouds, the raw emotions in the warp began to gather. A powerful surge of despair and fear in one corner of the galaxy might create a temporary vortex, a thinking, feeling storm of misery, an overwhelming outpouring of rage from a billion dying soldiers on a forgotten battlefield could spawn a momentary entity of pure, bloodthirsty violence. For a long time, these were fleeting things, minor spirits and formless entities that rose and fell with the emotional tides. But some emotions are more constant, more powerful, and more universal than others. And as civilizations rose and fell across thousands of worlds, these dominant emotions began to pool together, gaining a dreadful sentience. The constant, unending bloodshed of galactic war fed one great consciousness. The desperate search for forbidden knowledge and the inevitable ambition that follows fed another. The fear of disease and the universe, natural decay gave birth to a third, and the endless pursuit of sensation, of excess, of perfection in any form, nourished a fourth. These vast, growing consciousnesses are the basis of the chaos gods. They are not gods in the sense that they created the universe. They are gods because they were created thivitin by the universe, or rather, by the souls that inhabit it. This is the great and terrible secret of the immaterium. It is not a separate, alien hell. It is a part of every sentient being. The darkness that resides there is a reflection of the darkness within all life. To be a psyker, one who can consciously touch and manipulate the energies of the warp, is to open a door to this realm. It is to invite the hurricane into one's mind. Without iron, willed discipline, and years of brutal training, a psyker is a beacon, a screaming lighthouse attracting the predators that swim in the sea of souls. These predators are the daemons, fragments of their patron gods, consciousness given form, and a ravenous hunger for the souls of mortals. The veil between the materium and the immaterium is thin in some places. On worlds racked by war or plagued by suffering, the barrier can weaken. In these places, the nightmare can bleed into reality. The sky might weep blood. The stones of cities might scream in agony, and the dead might walk again, animated by the malevolent will of the entities beyond. This is why the Imperium fears the psyker and the heretic above all else. They are the unwitting gatekeepers, the ones who can turn a simple tear in the veil into a gaping wound, unleashing the horrors of the warp upon an unsuspecting world. And so, the immaterium remains. It is the heaven that souls journey to, and the hell that awaits them. The Eldari believe their souls are consumed by a hungry god upon death, and so they cage them in spirit stones. The Imperium teaches that the Emperor protects the faithful in the afterlife, their souls joining his light. But the truth is far more uncertain. The Sea of Souls is vast, and there are more things swimming in its depth than just the four great powers of chaos. To understand the gods who rule this realm, we must first understand their kingdom, a kingdom built on the dreams and nightmares of all life, a mirror reflecting the silent truths of every heart in the cold, dark galaxy. In the beginning, there was no chaos. There was no vast, screaming maelstrom of madness and despair. There was only the immaterium, a parallel dimension of pure psychic energy. It mirrored the vast stillness of the material universe. Imagine a perfectly calm ocean stretching into infinity, its surface like flawless glass. This was the Sea of Souls, a place without time, without form, where the potential for everything existed, but nothing yet was. It was a quiet place, a realm of gentle currents and soft, ambient light, reflecting the nascent thoughts and emotions of the few, scattered, sentient species that had begun their long journey across the stars. These early beings were simple, their psychic emanations like single droplets falling into the immense ocean, creating the faintest of ripples. The warp, as it would come to be known, was placid, a tranquil reflection of a galaxy that was largely at peace. The first intelligent races, ancient beyond human comprehension, lived and died, their passions and fears momentarily stirring the ethereal sea before dissipating back into the whole. These flickers of emotion, a flash of anger from a territorial dispute, a glimmer of hope in a successful hunt, a wave of despair from a natural disaster, were fleeting. They were notes in a symphony that had not yet found its conductor, echoes in a void that had not yet learned to answer. There were creatures in this primordial warp, of course. Benign entities drifted through the psychic currents, drawn to positive emotions, expressions of creation and contentment. But these were formless, instinctual beings, lacking the coherence to become something more. They were as natural to the immaterium as fish are to the ocean, part of the ecosystem of a dimension still untouched by true, lasting turmoil. The Sea of Souls was not a threat. It was simply a fact of existence, a psychic undercurrent to the physical world. This long age of tranquility was not to last. The catalyst for change, the first true poison to seep into the calm waters of the warp, was a conflict of unimaginable scale. It was a war so vast and so terrible that the Horus Heresy would seem like a minor skirmish in comparison. This was the war in heaven. It began with the Old Ones, a reptilian race of incredible wisdom and technological mastery. They were the galaxy's first great gardeners, seeding life on countless worlds and guiding the evolution of many species, including the ancient Eldari. The Old Ones were masters of the immaterium, using it to travel instantaneously across their vast domain through a labyrinthine network known as the Webway. Their psychic presence was immense, but their emotions were slow, cold, blooded, and deliberate, creating only gentle, predictable tides in the warp. Then came the Necronter, a frail species. They were born under a cursed star that ravaged their bodies with sickness and short lifespans. Their civilization was built on a foundation of bitterness and a deep, abiding fear of death. They looked upon the immortal Old Ones with a burning envy that curdled into absolute hatred. In their desperation, the Necrontyr declared war, a foolish, spiteful act born from despair. They were no match for the Old Ones, and were driven back, their rage and misery echoing uselessly in the void. Defeated and desperate, the silent king of the Necrontyr made a terrible bargain. He communed with the Cetan, God, like beings of pure energy that had existed since the birth of the universe. The Cetan star, vampires of immense power, offered the Necrontyr the immortality they craved. The price was their souls. The Necrontyr accepted, and their frail, fleshly bodies were replaced with shells of living metal. They became the Necrons, soulless and eternal, slaves to the will of their new masters. With the might of the Cetan and their new tireless legions of Necron warriors, the war in heaven resumed with a ferocity that shook the foundations of reality itself. To combat this new threat, the Old Ones engineered new psychically potent warrior races. Among them were the Quark, the powerful ancestors of the Orcs and the Eldari, a species with souls that shone with unparalleled brightness in the Immaterium. The introduction of these highly psychic and warlike species into the galactic conflict had a catastrophic effect on the once calm warp. The sheer, overwhelming emotion of a galaxy at war began to pour into the Sea of Souls. It was no longer a gentle rain of feeling, but a raging, unending storm. The raw violence, the unthinking bloodlust of the Quark, and the sophisticated, sharp-edged emotions of the Eldari churned the Immaterium into a chaotic hellscape. For the first time, a single powerful emotion began to coalesce, fed by trillions upon trillions of minds locked in brutal, unending conflict. Every act of murder, every feeling of rage, every drop of spilled blood began to pool together in the depths of the warp. This immense psychic energy, a vortex of pure, undiluted violence, gained a rudimentary consciousness. It was a simple, brutal awareness, defined by a singular, all-consuming purpose: bloodshed. This was the birth of Khorne, the blood god. He was the first of the great chaos gods to awaken, not in a single moment, but as a slow, dawning realization of self, born from the first truly galactic war. As the war dragged on, other powerful emotions followed suit, creating their own vortexes of sentient energy. The desperate plotting of the Old Ones, the ever-shifting strategies, and the constant hope for a new day or a new weapon to turn the tide, gave birth to another entity. This being was a creature of change and manipulation, of scheming and ambition. It was the embodiment of hope twisted into a tool for endless conflict. Tzeentch, the architect of fate, stirred from his slumber, weaving the threads of destiny for his own inscrutable purposes. And as the war brought unimaginable suffering, as plagues born of horrific weaponry ravaged entire star systems, and despair became the natural state of existence for countless beings, a third power awoke. This entity was born from the galaxy's collective fear of death, disease, and decay. But it was also born from the desperate, resilient will to endure, to survive even in the face of inevitable entropy. Nurgle, the Plague Lord, the god of death and rebirth, came into being, a grotesque but strangely paternal figure offering a twisted form of solace to the suffering. These three great powers, Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle, were born from the crucible of the war in heaven. The raw, primal emotions of that ancient conflict gave them form and consciousness. The once calm Sea of Souls was now the realm of chaos, a churning, nightmarish reflection of the carnage in the material universe. The whispers from the void now had names. They had personalities, and they began to look back at the galaxy that had created them, their newborn minds filled with an insatiable hunger for the emotions that gave them life. The great game for the souls of mortals had begun, though its most decadent player had yet to be born. In the endless, swirling sea of the Immaterium, where thoughts and emotions bleed into reality, there exists a fundamental truth. It is a truth as old as the first clenched fist, as ancient as the first cry of fury. It is the simple, brutal, and honest emotion of rage. Before ambition, before despair, before even the most subtle whisper of desire, there was anger. And from this raw, untamed power, a consciousness began to stir. This was Khorne. He was not born in a single moment of celestial cataclysm. Instead, he coalesced over uncounted ages, fed by every act of violence, every surge of hatred, every drop of blood spilled in anger, from the lowest beast to the most enlightened star. faring race. He is the primal heart of rage, the blood god, the lord of skulls. To understand Khorne is to understand the very nature of conflict. Think of the surge of heat that floods your veins in a moment of fury, the tightening of muscles, the narrowing of vision, the world shrinking until only the source of your anger remains. That is a flicker of Khorne's power. That is the echo of his eternal roar. Unlike his sibling gods, who delight in intricate schemes, hidden plagues, or sensory overload, Khorne is brutally direct. His is the philosophy of the axe blow, the cannon shot, the killing strike. He is the embodiment of war in its most pure and savage form. He cares not for the politics that start a war, nor the treaties that end it. He cares only for the moment of impact, the clang of steel on steel, and the crimson tide that follows. Khorne himself is most often depicted as a colossal figure, sitting upon a mighty throne of brass. His form is broad and impossibly muscular, clad in baroque armor of blackened iron and red metal. His face is a snarling canine visage, a mask of perpetual, inexhaustible rage. When he speaks, his voice is a growl that shakes the foundations of his realm, and his roar is the sound of 1,000,000,000 battles fought at once. His throne does not sit upon a floor of gold or marble. It rests atop a mountain of skulls. These are the trophies of his champions, the skulls of their mightiest foes, and indeed, the skulls of his own followers, when they inevitably fall in glorious combat. The mountain grows ever higher with each passing moment, a testament to the endless slaughter across 1,000,000 worlds. From the base of this ghastly peak, a river of blood flows, the collected essence of every life taken in his name. This river is not a metaphor, it is a reality in his domain, a torrent of gore that winds through his lands like a jagged scar. The domain of Khorne is known as the Fortress of Khorne, a realm built on foundations of murder and conflict. It is a monument to his nature. The sky is a burning, angry crimson, perpetually roiled by storms of pure rage that whip across the blasted plains. Great volcanoes of brass and iron dominate the landscape, spewing not lava, but molten white, hot fury. These are the hell forges where his daemon smiths pound out weapons of immense power. Their hammer falls ringing in time with the tortured screams of souls, bound to the anvils themselves. Every sword, every axe, every piece of armor is born in agony and rage, quenched in the boiling rivers of blood. There is no subtlety in Khorne's kingdom. There is no place for sorcery or deceit, which he despises as the tools of cowards. To face an enemy is to meet them head-on, to test your strength against theirs in honest, open combat. This is the core of what some might call Khorne's martial honor. While he is the god of mindless slaughter, he is also the god of the warrior's pride. He respects strength, courage, and martial skill. A follower of Khorne might slay a defenseless opponent without a second thought, for the blood must flow. But they would find a truer glory in defeating a worthy adversary in a fair duel. This is the paradox of the blood god. His creed is simple, yet it contains a twisted code. Kill, maim, burn, but do so with all your strength, all your fury. Hold nothing back, prove your worthiness through the act of righteous slaughter. His most hated rival is Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, where Khorne represents focused rage and the singular purpose of combat. Slaanesh embodies self-indulgence, sensation, and excess for its own sake. Khorne sees Slaanesh followers as decadent, weak, and undisciplined. The duelist who toys with their foe, seeking the perfect sensation of the kill, is an abomination to Khorne, who desires only the kill itself. This fundamental opposition fuels an eternal conflict between their legions in the great game of chaos. Khorne's armies are a direct reflection of his being. His demonic foot soldiers are the bloodletters. They are wiry, hunched creatures with reptilian faces and long, wicked blades of hell, forged iron known as hellblades. They are the tallymen of Khorne, counting each skull taken for their master. They march in disciplined legions, their footsteps shaking the ground, a vision of ordered, relentless violence. Hunting alongside them, and often ahead of the main assault, are the flesh hounds of Khorne. These are demonic beasts, fast and brutal, a terrifying fusion of wolf and reptile. They are the hunters of cowards, relentless in their pursuit of those who would flee from the glory of battle. Their collars of brass are not for restraint, but are powerful wards against the sorcery their master so despises. At the head of the pack is the greatest of their kind, a three-headed monster named Karanak, the embodiment of Khorne, vengeful wrath. And then there are the greater daemons, the bloodthirsters. To see one is to witness rage given form. They are towering, winged monstrosities, with the horned heads of savage, dog-like beasts and bodies of corded, crimson muscle. They wield immense axes, capable of cleaving a tank in two, and long, fiery whips that crack with the sound of breaking bones. Each bloodthirster is a demigod of war, a general of the infernal legions, their mere presence on a battlefield capable of turning the tide through sheer, unadulterated terror and awe. Inspiring violence. The mightiest among them is Anagrath, the Unbound, a being of such destructive power that he has only been summoned into the material galaxy twice in 10,000 years, with each appearance resulting in the destruction of entire worlds. Yet, Khorne's influence is not limited to the demonic. Mortals, too, are drawn to his call, those who feel the fire of battle in their souls, who live for the rush of combat, find a patron in the Lord of Skulls. The most infamous of his mortal followers are the World Eater's Legion of Chaos Space Marines, led by their tormented Primarch, Angron. They are warriors who have been driven to incurable, frothing madness by arcane implants known as the Butcher's nails. These devices transform any emotion other than rage into a searing, agonizing pain, leaving only the release of bloodshed as a reprieve. Angron, now a demon prince, is a being of pure, undiluted fury, a tragic figure who found his only solace in the simple, bloody creed of his new master. And one cannot speak of Khorne's champions without mentioning the name of Khorne, the betrayer. Once a noble, if brutal captain of the World Eaters, Khorne is the perfect embodiment of Khorne's will. During one battle, when his own legion faltered and took cover from enemy fire, Khorne grew so enraged by their cowardice that he single-handedly slaughtered them, roaring the mantra that would define him. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it does. He is a force of nature, an unstoppable killer, who lives only for the next battle, the next skull for the throne. The call of Khorne is a simple one. It is not a promise of ultimate power, or forbidden knowledge, or endless pleasure. It is the promise of release. It offers an escape from fear, from doubt, from complexity. It offers the simple, honest clarity of the battlefield, where all that matters is strength, and all that is asked is that you spill blood for the blood god, and offer skulls for his throne. In a galaxy of endless war, of horror and betrayal, the primal heart of rage beats a steady, simple rhythm. And for many lost souls, that rhythm is the only truth left to follow. We journey now into the heart of rage itself, to a place where the very air crackles with unending conflict. We travel to the Brass Citadel, the personal fortress of Khorne, the blood god. This is not a place of quiet contemplation or subtle scheming. It is a monument to fury, built on foundations of murder and bloodshed. Its existence is a constant, roaring testament to the Lord of Skulls. Imagine, if you can, a fortress of impossible scale. It towers over the blasted landscapes of Khorne. Whelm, a jagged silhouette against a sky of bruised crimson and swirling black smoke. Its walls are not of simple stone, but of brass, stained and streaked with the blood of millennia. These walls are so tall, they seem to scrape the clouds, topped with cruel, spiked crenellations that tear at the angry sky. The metal of the fortress is not smooth, but broken by jagged outcrops and serrated spurs, like the teeth of some great metallic predator. Every parapet, every ledge, is adorned with gargoyles, but leering, hateful things, capable of spewing streams of molten metal upon any who would dare approach. From gibbets and gallows hang the lifeless forms of champions who have failed, their bodies a testament to the price of weakness in the eyes of the blood god. A vast moat surrounds this unholy bastion, but it is not filled with water. It is a river of boiling blood, the scalding gore of those who have lost their lives to war. The air within the brass citadel is swelteringly hot and thick with the coppery tang of fresh blood. Echoing clash of blades, the roar of furnaces, and the tormented screams of the dying. A vast network of blood-stained corridors and arming chambers honeycombs. The fortress, connecting its many blast furnaces, armories, and prisons. In the demonic forges of Khorne, endless legions of demon engines are churned out, their creation a symphony of hammering metal and bound souls. The souls of warriors who died in their sleep are doomed to labor here for eternity, their shame fueling the fires of war. Beyond the forges lie the pens of the juggernauts, behind cracked and buckled walls, thicker than any mortal fortification. These demonic beasts are corralled. Titanic creatures of living metal and raw fury, they constantly battle one another, their armored heads clashing with the force of meteors. Only the most favored of Khorne's champions are given the chance to tame one of these monstrous steeds, a trial that often ends in a bloody smear against the pen's walls. Deeper within the citadel, beneath its very foundations, are the lairs of the flesh hounds. In these cavernous dens, the hounds of Khorne gnaw on the bones of their prey, their three-headed forms ever watchful, ever hungry. One of these beasts is Karanak, the eternal hunter, a champion in his own right, whose pursuit is relentless and inescapable. At the very heart of this realm of endless battle lies the throne room. This is a vast, vaulted chamber, its obsidian ceiling held aloft by 8 colossal iron pillars. Each pillar is inscribed with the commandments of Khorne, edicts of rage, defiance, and martial pride. The floor is a carpet of splintered bone, and the air is thick with a humidity that stains all who enter with a film of blood. And there, upon a mountain of skulls, sits the brass throne. The mountain grows ever higher with each life taken in Khorne, a macabre monument to his eternal slaughter. The skulls are of every race imaginable, from the smallest human to the most colossal alien beast. Those closest to the throne are the skulls of his most favored champions, their war cries echoing for all eternity. Upon this throne of bone and brass sits Khorne himself. He is a figure of immense power, his form broad and muscular, clad in baroque armor of brass and black iron. His face is a snarling hound, like visage, a mask of pure, undiluted rage. His every word is a growl of inexhaustible fury, and his roars of bloodlust shake the very foundations of his realm. He does not sit alone. At the foot of his throne prowls Karanak, the hound of vengeance, his 3 heads sniffing the air for the scent of his master. And in the shadows, ever present, are his chosen champions, Beings like Skulltaker, a bloodletter created with the sole purpose of decapitation, who has taken so many heads for his god that he is allowed to wear a few as trophies on his cloak. Then there is Skarbrand, the exiled bloodthirster, whose rage was so great he dared to strike Horn himself, and for his insolence was cast out, his wings shattered, but his fury undiminished. And there is Angren, the demon primarch of the World Eaters, a being of pure, unending agony and rage, one of Khorne, as most terrifying and destructive servants. This is the Brass Citadel, a place where war is not an event, but the very fabric of existence. The land itself is in a constant state of conflict, with rivers of boiling blood-carving canyons through plains of cracked, bone-littered earth. Volcanoes known as Khorne's rage perpetually erupt, spewing forth molten brass that forms new weapons of war. Even the sky is a battleground, with storms of pure rage whipping across the crimson expanse. There is no peace here. There is no respite. There is only the endless, thunderous rhythm of war, the ceaseless flow of blood, and the ever-growing mountain of skulls. For in the domain of Khorne, the battle is all that is, and all that ever will be. It is a realm of pure, unadulterated violence, a perfect reflection of the God who rules it. And as we leave this place of eternal conflict, we carry with us the echoes of its unending war, a grim lullaby for a universe steeped in battle. In the grand, silent theater of the Immaterium, where thoughts manifest as storms and emotions congeal into sentient landscapes, there exists a realm unlike any other. It is a place not of jagged peaks and fiery chasms, nor of crystalline labyrinths of impossibility. Instead, it is a garden, a macabre paradise of pestilence, teeming with a horrifying, vibrant life. This is the domain of Nurgle, the Lord of Decay, the Master of Pestilence, and to his countless followers, the beloved grandfather of all the great and terrible Chaos gods. Nurgle is perhaps the most paradoxical. He is the embodiment of despair, born from the collective fear of death and disease that plagues all mortal creatures. Yet, he is not a figure of morbid gloom. Quite the opposite. Grandfather Nurgle is a being of boundless energy, of jovial enthusiasm, and paternal affection for all living things. He sees the process of decay not as an end, but as a beginning. He finds beauty in the teeming microorganisms that break down flesh, in the vibrant fungi that sprout from rotting logs, and in the endless cycle of death and rebirth. To Nurgle, every oozing sore is a mark of his love, a gift of resilience bestowed upon his children. His realm, the Garden of Nurgle, is a testament to this grotesque philosophy. It is a forever, expanding domain within the warp, a landscape of death and pestilence. Twisted, rotten boughs of ancient trees form a dense canopy, dripping with corrosive fluids. The ground is a soft, moldering mulch from which puffballs of vile spores erupt. Muddy rivers of filth and contagion slither across the landscape, their banks buzzing with swarms of black, furry flies. It is a place alive with the stench of rot and the hum of insects. Yet, for all its horror, the garden is not a barren wasteland. It is a place of macabre vitality, a sanctuary where suffering births new and terrifying life. At the very heart of this putrid paradise stands Nurgle's mansion, known as the Blighted Mansion of Misery and Mirth. It is a decrepit, ancient structure of rotted timbers and broken walls, yet its foundations are eternally strong. Within these tumbling halls, Nurgle himself toils endlessly over a vast, rusted cauldron. This cauldron is said to be large enough to contain all the oceans of every world in the galaxy. Here, with a maggot-ridden ladle, the plague god brews his creations. With every stir, a dozen new diseases flourish, new contagions and pestilences to be unleashed upon the mortal realms. Nurgle is not a distant ruler, commanding from a throne. He roams his domain, speaking with his demons, tending to the filth, and delighting in the eternal cycle of his garden. He is a hands-on God, intimately involved with his creations and his followers. This paternal nature is why he is so often called Grandfather, or Papa Nurgle, by those who worship him. They see his plagues not as curses, but as blessings, gifts that free them from the fear of death and the pain of their afflictions. His demonic legions are as varied and grotesque as the diseases he concocts. The most powerful among them are the great unclean ones, the greater daemons of Nurgle. These beings are massive, bloated fiends, made in the very image of Nurgle himself. Their flesh is necrotic and covered in boils, and their organs spill from gaping rents in their bellies. Despite their horrific appearance, they are jovial and sentimental beings, taking a parental pride in their followers, whom they call their children. The rank and file of his armies are the plague bearers. These lesser daemons are born from the souls of mortals who have succumbed to Nurgle, Esrot, his most infamous creation. They are solemn, single-eyed beings with gangling limbs and bodies swollen with decay. Their eternal task is to act as Nurgle, tallymen, attempting to catalog the countless diseases their master creates, an impossible and endless duty. They march to battle with a shambling gait, chanting monotonous hymns that can cause illness in mortals who hear them. Then there are the Nurglings, tiny, mischievous daemons that are the very personification of a boil or pustule. They are born within the entrails of great unclean ones, feeding on their rancid juices until they pop out. These small, bloated creatures are miniature images of Nurgle, full of playful energy. They swarm around their larger kin and favored mortal champions, nipping at enemies with infectious bites and claws. Among his mortal followers, the most feared are the Death Guard, the chief legion of Space Marines. Their Primarch, Mortarion, turned to Nurgle during the dark days of the Horus Heresy, trapped in the warp and afflicted by a plague that even their superhuman resilience could not overcome. Mortarion and his legion gave themselves to the Lord of Decay in exchange for an end to their suffering. Nurgle answered their prayers, transforming them into his chosen mortal champions, the Plague Marines. Now, they are beings of incredible resilience, their bodies bloated and corrupted by disease, yet feeling no pain. They are the perfect instruments for spreading Nurgle's gifts across the galaxy. The most insidious of Nurgle's creations is a disease known as Nurgle's rot. It is more than a simple physical ailment. It is a spiritual contagion that corrupts the very soul of its victim. Those who contract the rot are slowly transformed, their bodies becoming bloated and putrid. Upon their death, their soul is claimed by Nurgle and reborn as a plague bearer. It is said that for every mortal who contracts the disease, a warty seed pod sprouts on a willow tree in Nurgle's garden, swelling and ripening as the victim's life force is drained away. Nurgle's influence is a slow, creeping entropy. He offers an escape from despair, a twisted form of immortality, where one no longer fears the ravages of time or the agony of disease. His followers find a strange joy in their morbid state, a sense of belonging in a grand cyclical design. They are a testament to the idea that even in the face of inevitable decay, life, in its most horrifying forms, finds a way to endure. For in the embrace of Grandfather Nurgle, all things find their end, and from that end, a new and terrible beginning sprouts forth. The Garden of Nurgle is not a place of barren wasteland. It is a macabre paradise of death and pestilence. Here, within the realm of chaos, the Lord of Decay tends to a domain that is a grotesque reflection of his own paradoxical nature. It is a place teeming with foul life, a testament to the unending cycle of decay and rebirth that Nurgle embodies. Imagine a sky, not of blue, but thick with the constant, buzzing swarm of black, furry flies. Their drone is the garden's eternal symphony, a monotonous hum that can invite madness. Beneath this living canopy, the ground is a moldering carpet of grasping vines and twisted, rotten boughs. The very air is thick with spores, puffed out in vile clouds from fungi both plain and extraordinary. Breaking through the leaf-strewn mulch of the forest floor, muddy rivers, thick and sluggish, slither across the bloated landscape, carrying filth and disease in their currents. This is a realm where life and death are inextricably intertwined. Every plant, every creature is a testament to this union. Trees made of living flesh weep, tears of pus and blood. Fields of tongues, blistered with myriad infections, sprout from the rich, corrupted soil. In some corners, you might find the hanging gardens of thus Bolg, a grim monument where a great unclean one used his own intestines to hang his orc victims from the trees. There they dangle and rot, a constant, silent testament to Nurgle's peculiar sense of aesthetic. Even death itself brings a strange kind of life here. In the Deathbell lily fields, whenever a mortal succumbs to one of Nurgle's diseases in the material realm, a pallid flower emits a tiny, delicate chime. At the very heart of this vibrant decay stands Nurgle's mansion. It appears decrepit and ancient, a hulk of rotted timbers and broken walls. Yet its foundations are eternally strong. This is the mansion of misery and mirth, where Grandfather Nurgle, the Lord of all, toils. Of all the Chaos gods, Nurgle is said to be the most involved with the plight of mortals, and it is here that his work is done. Inside these tumbling walls, beneath mildewed and sagging beams, Nurgle works for eternity at a rusted cauldron. This cauldron is a receptacle vast enough to contain all the oceans of all the worlds in the galaxy, chuckling and murmuring to himself. Nurgle labors to create the most sublime and unfettered forms of life, contagions and pestilences, with every stir of his maggot-ridden ladle. A dozen new diseases flourish. From time to time, he scoops a portion of the ghastly mixture into his own cavernous mouth, tasting the fruits of his labor. His ultimate goal is to brew the perfect disease, a spiritual plague that will spread across the universe and bring all living things into his rotting, yet loving, embrace. He is not alone in this grand task. A host of plague-bearers surrounds him, their chanting voices endlessly keeping count of the diseases created, the souls claimed, and the mischievous Nurglings hatched. These plague-bearers are the foot soldiers of Nurgle's legions, crafted from the blighted souls of mortals who have been slain by the virulent plague known as Nurgle. This disease is as much a spiritual affliction as a physical one. As a mortal body is slowly consumed by the rot, their soul is leached into Nurgle's realm. Here, in the garden, it appears as a warty seed pod growing on the cracked branches of a gloomy willow tree. The pod swells and ripens as the victim's dying energies feed the nascent daemon within. When the mortal finally expires, the pod drops and a new plague-bearer tears itself free, ready to join the endless tally. Those who resist the disease for a long time may even become a larger, tougher demonic herald of Nurgle. The daemons of Nurgle reflect their master's jovial nature, though their appearance is putrid and sickening, with skin filled with the fever, heat of corruption and innards, pushing through lesions. They are often cheerful, energetic beings. They take great pride in their work, seeing the plagues they spread as gifts and the cries of their victims as sounds of gratitude. Great unclean ones, the greater daemons of Nurgle, are massive, bloated carriers of disease, often wielding plague swords dipped in the foul contagion at the base of Nurgle's throne. Nurglings, tiny mischievous versions of their master, frolic in the filth, their laughter echoing through the garden, and beasts of Nurgle, exuberant and eager, bound to meet new friends, only to be briefly disappointed when their playmates dissolve from their uncontrollably affectionate and toxic touch. Overseeing this entire macabre ecosystem is Horticulus Slimmux, the grand cultivator of the Garden of Nurgle. Some speculate he was the very first daemon of Nurgle ever created. He is ancient and wizened, his mood often as sour as the blighted fruits he tends. Riding his lumbering molluscoid steed, Mulch, he travels the garden, his lopping shears ready. He is pragmatic and curmudgeonly, a stark contrast to the usual joviality of Nurgle's other daemons. Those who annoy him are likely to become fertilizer for his beloved, diseased plants. One of the most powerful beings in the garden is Kugath Plaguefather, a mighty great unclean one with a unique and sorrowful history. He was once just a tiny Nurgling, sitting happily on Nurgle's shoulder as the god brewed his ultimate disease in the great cauldron. In his excitement, the little Nurgling slipped and fell in, but instead of being destroyed, he drank and drank until he had absorbed the entire plague. This act transformed him into a massive great unclean one, but it also filled him with a deep despair for having robbed his father of his greatest creation. Now, Kugath is obsessed with creating a new contagion, one that can infect the gods themselves, hoping to one day earn his grandfather's full approval once more. He is ever eager to test his fresh creations, often launching Nurglings, filled with new plagues into the ranks of his enemies, watching the results with a proud father's delight if the disease meets his expectations. Within the mansion, Nurgle also keeps a strange prisoner and companion, Isha, the Eldari goddess of healing. She is held in a cage in the same room as the great cauldron. Nurgle, in his twisted affection, force, feeds her his latest creations. Being a goddess of healing, Isha can cure herself of any disease, and Nurgle watches to see how long it takes her to overcome his newest plague. If he is pleased with the potency of the contagion, he unleashes it upon an unsuspecting world. The Garden of Nurgle is a realm of endless, vibrant decay. It is a place where every ending is a new beginning, a cycle of life and death that is both horrific and, in its own way, beautiful. It is a testament to the idea that all things must eventually fall to physical corruption, that the very act of creation foreshadows destruction and decay. And yet, within that decay, there is a strange and enduring form of life, a resilience that is the core of Nurgle's power. For those who embrace the decay, who see the blessings in the plagues and the joy in the rot, the garden is not a hellscape, but a paradise, a place of endless fascination, where the cycle of existence plays out in its most primal and most honest form, in the vast, churning expanse of the immaterium, where thought and emotion coalesce into tangible, terrifying reality. There exists a being of pure, unadulterated change. He is known by 1,000 names, the changer of ways, the architect of fate, the great conspirator. To whisper his true name is to invite madness, for he is Dainch, born from the very first flicker of hope in a mortal heart, from the earliest dream of a better tomorrow. Dainch is the embodiment of ambition. He is the yearning for a different state, the burning desire for knowledge, and the intricate dance of political intrigue. Every mortal creature, in some small way, feeds his power with their hopes, their schemes, and their relentless drive to alter their destiny. Unlike his brother gods, who revel in bloodshed or despair, Tzeentch finds his sustenance in the subtle and the complex. He is the grand puppet master, pulling at the strings of fate across the galaxy. His plans are not simple, linear paths to victory. They are impossibly convoluted webs of intrigue, where one scheme folds into another, and victory and defeat are often indistinguishable. To even a casual observer, his plots might seem contradictory, even self-defeating. But this is the very nature of the great schemer. Only Tzeentch, in his omniscience, can perceive the full tapestry of cause and effect, understanding how the fall of a single hive city on a forgotten world can echo through millennia to cause the collapse of an entire star system. He does not scheme for a final, ultimate victory in the great game of chaos, for that would mean an end to the very change he embodies. Finding endless amusement in the infinite possibilities, his form, like his plans, is in constant flux. Those few mortals who have gazed upon him and retained a sliver of their sanity describe a being whose skin writhes and rolls with countless shifting faces. These faces flicker into existence, each one repeating his words with a slightly different inflection. A changed word here or there, offering commentary or mocking analysis. This makes it nearly impossible to discern his true meaning, shrouding his every utterance in layers of deception and possibility. Raw, coruscating magical energy surrounds him like a shimmering, smoky aura, a testament to his absolute mastery over the energies of the warp. For magic, in its essence, is the imposition of will to create change, and thus it is Tzeentch's ultimate domain. His realm within the warp is a reflection of his own incomprehensible mind. The Crystal Labyrinth. This is no simple maze of walls and corridors, but an ever-shifting, endless landscape woven from the very fabric of magic and deceit. Its crystalline walls, shimmering with every color imaginable and unimaginable, do not merely reflect light. They reflect hope, despair, ambition, and madness, distorting the aspirations of any who intrude, pulling their purpose apart, until all that remains is gibbering insanity. To navigate its passages is to view all 9 dimensions simultaneously, an experience that shatters the senses of any mortal being. Unlike the realms of his brothers, the labyrinth is not patrolled by demonic legions. It needs no guards, for its own confounding nature is the perfect defense, trapping intruders for eternity in a prison of their own broken dreams. At the very heart of this impossible maze, a place that cannot be found by conventional means, stands the impossible fortress. Its architecture defies all logic, with twisted crystal spires and towers of blue and pink flame constantly rearranging themselves according to the passing whims of their master. Within this fortress, Tzeentch watches the skeins of fate, observing the countless threads of destiny that make up the past, the present, and all possible futures. He sees every plot, every whispered secret, every desperate prayer from every corner of the galaxy. His servants are as varied and strange as his own multifarious nature. The most powerful of his daemons are the Lords of Change, great avian creatures of immense intelligence and sorcerous power. They are the architects of his grand designs in the material realm, leading the scintillating legions to war in a bizarre carnival of magical violence. Below them are the chattering, mischievous horrors. When they first manifest, they are pink, cackling as they hurl bolts of raw magic. But should one be struck down, it splits into 2 smaller, angrier blue horrors who spitefully snap and bite at their foes. His armies are further bolstered by screamers, ethereal manta, ray, like creatures that glide through the skies, and flamers, bizarre daemons who spout torrents of warp, fire that mutates as it burns. In the mortal realm, Teach finds his most willing followers, among those who crave knowledge and power. Sorcerers, psychers, and disenfranchised leaders are all easy prey for his whispers of promise. He offers them forbidden lore, the key to unlocking their psychic potential and the power to change their circumstances. His cults are often deeply embedded within the structures of society, existing for centuries as secret cabals and shadowy organizations, patiently waiting for the precise moment to enact their master's will. But to serve Teach is to walk a razor. Edge, his gifts often come in the form of physical mutations, blessings that are hard to distinguish from curses. A favored champion might be gifted with a third eye that can see the future, but that same eye might also show them every horrifying possibility at once, driving them mad. The ultimate fate for many of Teinch's followers is to devolve into mindless, gibbering chaos spawn, their bodies and minds overwhelmed by the very change they once craved. Perhaps the most tragic and famous of all his servants are the Thousand Suns Space Marine Legion and their Primarch, Magnus the Red. Magnus, a psychic giant who sought only knowledge, was manipulated by Teach from his earliest days in a desperate attempt to save his sons from a rampant mutational curse known as the Flesh. Magnus made a deal in the dark, trading his eye for the forbidden knowledge to halt the affliction. This single act of love and desperation was the first step on a long, sorrowful road to damnation. Teach twisted Magnus' good intentions, using him as a pawn to warn the Emperor of Horus' betrayal in a way that would shatter the Emperor's own great work in the end. To save his legion from annihilation, Magnus had no choice but to fully surrender himself and his sons to the Changer of Ways, their souls forever bound to the Architect of Fate. The number 9 is sacred to Teach, a symbol of the intricate and cyclical nature of his plans. His legions are divided into 9 hosts, and the 9 most favored are granted fractal fortresses within the crystal labyrinth. The path to ultimate knowledge within his realm is said to lie behind 9 golden gates, each guarded by a riddle speaking entity. This fascination with numerology and symbolism permeates all of his actions, adding yet another layer of complexity to his already indecipherable schemes. Teich is the embodiment of contradiction. He is the source of hope and the architect of despair. He offers knowledge that leads only to madness and power that results in slavery. His schemes unravel even as they come to fruition, and his greatest victories often contain the seeds of his own defeat. He is the whisper in the dark that promises a better future, the subtle nudge that sends empires toppling, and the blinding flash of insight that reveals a terrible, immutable truth. To follow him is to embrace eternal uncertainty, to dance on the edge of a knife in a universe of infinite, terrifying possibility. And as you drift deeper into the quiet dark, perhaps you can feel the subtle threads of fate, gently shifting, ever-changing, endlessly weaving the grand, unknowable design of the Master of Fortune. Breathe, and let us drift now into the Empyrean. Let us travel past the roar of Khorne's forges and the cloying stillness of Nurgle. Journey to a place of shimmering, impossible light, a domain woven from the very raw fabric of magic itself. This is the Crystal Labyrinth, the realm of Teach. Imagine an endless, sprawling maze, so vast it rivals the blood-soaked lands of Khorne. It rests upon a great iridescent plateau that shimmers like polished opal. The avenues and pathways before you are not stone or earth, but pure, solid crystal, glittering in every conceivable color. These are not silent, static halls. They are alive, driven by the unconscious schemes of their master. The labyrinth constantly moves and rearranges itself. A clear path forward might suddenly become a dead end. a whim of the Lord of Fate. To be lost here is to wander for an eternity, your mind slowly unraveling, your dreams shattered by your own failed ambitions. Unlike the other chaos domains, the Crystal Labyrinth has no demonic warriors standing guard. It does not need them. The maze itself is the defender. Its illusory passages are a barrier for any who are not impossibly strong of mind. As you drift through these crystalline corridors, you would see that they do not just reflect light, they reflect everything. They reflect your hopes, your deepest miseries, your most secret dreams, and your most terrifying nightmares. And the labyrinth does not merely reflect, it distorts. It takes hold of your purpose, your ambition, and pulls it apart, thread by thread, until all that remains is despair and gentle, quiet insanity. Here the air itself hums with raw magic. Rivers of pure sorcery flow in iridescent streams, their currents defying gravity, pooling in eddies of raw potential before cascading into waterfalls of pure light. The very substance of this place is a contradiction. Mind, bending, and sanity, shattering to behold. To try and map it, to define it, is to invite madness. For the labyrinth is Tainch, and Tainch is the labyrinth. Strange pathways, forged from whispered lies and intricate deceptions, branch off from the main corridors. These hidden routes connect the crystal labyrinth to the domains of the other chaos gods, binding them all in a great cosmic web of cause and effect. A spur of crystal might suddenly pierce through the murky soil of Nurgle, Asgarden spilling forth the chittering daemons of Tainch to claim a small piece of that stagnant realm. As we float deeper into this ever-shifting reality, we might glimpse the strange inhabitants. They are not warriors, but manifestations of magic itself. Pink horrors, bubbling with manic energy, bound through the crystalline halls, their laughter echoing in discordant notes. When struck, they do not die, but split into two smaller, angrier blue horrors, their misery a stark contrast to the joy of their larger kin. These creatures are change personified, simple yet profound expressions of their master. And then there are the Lords of Change, the greater daemons of Tainch. They are the Watchers, the feathered lords, the eyes of their god. They appear as tall, gangly beings covered in multi-colored feathers, their forms seeming frail and wasted, often leaning on ornate staves as if for support. But this is just one of their many deceptions. Their skin is as hard as iron, their reflexes impossibly fast, but their true power lies in their gaze. Their eyes are gateways to the vast, maddening mind of Tainch himself. To meet their gaze is to have your hopes and dreams laid bare, to see all the twisting possibilities of your future at once. Few mortal minds can withstand such a thing. These powerful demons are the masters of magic, able to conjure storms of warp fire or twist reality with a simple gesture. They delight in manipulation, viewing lesser beings as playthings in their great cosmic games. Now, let us drift towards the heart of the labyrinth, hidden from all who lack the insane insight to find it. A new structure comes into view. This is the impossible fortress, Sanctus as Sanctorum. Its architecture is a fluid nightmare, constantly replacing itself with ever more maddening spires. Walls and gates, towers of blue and pink flame erupt from its core, only to shimmer and vanish a moment later. Great doors yawn open like starving mouths before clamping shut for eternity, barring all entry. Inside the impossible fortress, the laws of reality break down completely. Time and space cease to exist. Gravity shifts, vanishes, or reverses at a whim. Lights of every color, including some unknown to the material universe, spring from the shifting walls. Even immortal daemons find it difficult to endure the twisted horror of this place. Only the Lords of Change can navigate its corridors with any safety, treading secret paths that lead to the very center of all things. And at that center lies the hidden library. This is not just a collection of books, it is a repository of every single scrap of knowledge, every thought from every creature, across all of space and time. Here, Teach himself concocts his eternal plots. Countless pink and blue horrors are trapped within, tending to the endless shelves like mad gardeners in a thorny, overgrown wood. The books themselves are alive, chattering to their keepers, trapping the demons in webs of deceit until their energy fades and is absorbed by the library itself. There is another secret, deep within the impossible fortress, a place even Tainch himself is said to fear. It is called the Well of Eternity. It is a bottomless receptacle of knowledge, located at the very heart of the fortress. It is a place where time and space begin and end. Long ago, Tainch wished to know its secrets, but would not risk entering himself. He sent his most powerful Lords of Change into its depths, but none ever returned. In his frustration, he cast his own vizier, the Lord of Change known as Kairos, into the well. Miraculously, Kairos survived and emerged, but he was changed. He now had two heads. One head can only see the future in all its possibility. The other can only see the past. He is forever blind to the present. Now called Kairos Fatweaver, he knows things that even his master does not, and he whispers these secrets to Tainch from his perch beside the endless well. The Crystal Labyrinth is more than just a place. It is a mind. It is a living embodiment of change, ambition, and the infinite, terrifying possibilities of fate. It is a realm of quiet, beautiful, and absolute madness, where knowledge is a weapon, where hope is a vulnerability, and where every corridor promises ultimate power, or eternal, peaceful oblivion. And now we let its shifting colors and gentle, humming energies guide us into sleep. In the quiet spaces between the stars, where the echoes of creation have long since faded, there exists a power born, not of primordial rage or whispered conspiracy, but of a civilization's final, shuddering sigh. This is the domain of Slaash, the Prince of Excess, the Lord of Dark Delights. Unlike its siblings in the pantheon of chaos, Slaash was not born from the raw, untamed forces of the universe. It was created, meticulously, unintentionally, by the unchecked desires of a mortal race. Before their fall, the Eldari were masters of the galaxy. Their empire was a thing of beauty and technological marvel, their worlds paradises of cultural and artistic achievement. With their basic needs met by tireless automatons, they were free to pursue lives of leisure and pleasure. For millennia, they lived in peace, their long lives culminating in a gentle rebirth within the psychic sea of the warp. But a civilization without struggle, without need, can become a dangerous thing. Wants slowly, insidiously, became habits, and habits curdled into necessities. Their pursuit of new experiences, of deeper sensations, began to twist. Art became grotesque, music became cacophonous, and pleasure became inseparable from pain. They pushed every boundary of mortal experience, indulging in every conceivable act, no matter how cruel or depraved. This tidal wave of intense, psychic emotion did not go unnoticed in the Immaterium. It began to coalesce, to stir, to form a consciousness, a dark reflection of the Eldari's own rampant hedonism. They were, in effect, birthing their own god, a being nurtured on lust, greed, excess, and perfection. The birth of Slaanesh was not a gentle awakening. It was a psychic apocalypse, with a single universe-shattering scream. The new god tore its way into existence. This psychic implosion ripped a hole in the fabric of reality, creating the vast warp storm known as the Eye of Terror, where the heart of the Eldari Empire once beat. In that instant, trillions of Eldari died, their souls ripped from their bodies and devoured by the newborn god they had created. She who thirsts, as the surviving Eldari would call it, had an insatiable hunger for their souls, a hunger that would haunt them for all time. Slaanesh's form is as fluid and capricious as the desires that feed it. It can appear as male, female, both, or neither. Its most common depiction is that of an androgynous youth, hauntingly beautiful, with one side of its body male and the other female, crowned with two sets of elegant horns. This form, however, is merely a preference. The Dark Prince is a shapeshifter, its appearance tailored to the deepest, most secret vices of the one who beholds it. To look upon Slaanesh is to see your own ultimate temptation staring back at you, an allure so powerful it can shatter the strongest will. The realm of Slaanesh within the warp is not a place of fire and brass, nor of festering decay. It is a paradise of temptation. Known as the Palace of Slaanesh, it is a domain of 6 concentric rings, each representing a different form of seduction. The first ring is a land of impossible riches, where trees of living gold shimmer and jewels grow like fruit. The second is a forest of serene glades, where pools of still water reflect a visitor's greatest accomplishments, luring them into a narcissistic trance from which they never wake. Each circle presents a more subtle, more potent temptation, designed to ensnare the unwary and feed the Prince of Pleasure with their souls. The daemons of Slaanesh are extensions of their master's will, creatures of both horrific cruelty and unsettling beauty. The most powerful among them are the Keepers of Secrets, the greater daemons of Slaanesh. They are lithe and graceful, faster than any other greater daemon, their forms shifting according to Slaanesh's whims at the moment of their creation. They possess 4 arms, 2 ending in wicked, crab-like pincers, and they know the most intimate desires of any mortal, whispering promises that are impossible to resist. Serving them are the Daemonettes, the common foot soldiers of the legions of excess. Like their master, they are disturbingly beautiful, often with both masculine and feminine features, their hands replaced with sharp, chitinous claws. They are warriors and concubines, haunting the dreams of mortals and inflicting nightmares while singing their god's praises in the Palace of Slaanesh. Fiends of Slaanesh are nightmarish beasts, a bizarre hybrid of insect, reptile, and human, who skitter across the battlefield with mesmerizing speed. They are said to be the byproducts of Slaanesh's dreams, their long tongues capable of inducing a coma with a single touch, and pulling their exquisite chariots are the steeds of Slaanesh, lurid, snake-like creatures who fear only boredom and lash out with prehensile tongues that taste the blood in the air. Of all the mortals who have fallen to the seductive whispers of the Dark Prince, none fell further or more completely than the Emperor's children. The 3rd Legion of the Space Marines and their Primarch, Fulgrim, the Emperor's children, were once the embodiment of perfection. They were noble, strong, and civilized, the only legion permitted to bear the Emperor's own symbol, the Palatine Aquila, upon their armor. Their Primarch, Fulgrim, known as the Phoenician, was obsessed with achieving perfection in all things, seeking to emulate the Emperor himself. This relentless pursuit of perfection, however, bred a deep and dangerous pride. It was this pride that Slaanesh would exploit. The beginning of Fulgrim's fall came with the discovery of a demon-possessed blade on a world called Lair. The sword whispered to him, feeding his ego, validating his quest for perfection, and slowly poisoning his mind. The corruption spread throughout his legion. They began to indulge in extravagant feasts, decadent art, and ever more extreme sensations. The pursuit of perfection twisted into a pursuit of perfect, unending hedonism. On the battlefields of Istvan Vifi, during the Great Betrayal, known as the Horus Heresy, Fulgrim confronted his dearest brother, Ferrus Manes, Primarch of the Iron Hands. In a duel that shattered both their hearts, the demon sword took control of Fulgrim's arm, forcing him to strike the killing blow. The grief and horror of this act broke Fulgrim completely. He surrendered his will, allowing the demon within the blade to possess his body entirely, his own spirit trapped within a twisted painting in his quarters. For a time, the demon wore his form, leading his legion deeper into depravity. But even a keeper of secrets is no match for the will of a Primarch. Fulgrim eventually fought back, overpowering the demon and reclaiming his body. He did not return to the light. He emerged from his spiritual prison, having fully embraced his new god, devoting himself willingly and completely to Slaanesh. He had found the ultimate experience, the ultimate perfection, in the endless sensations offered by the Prince of Excess. His fall was complete. He would later achieve apotheosis, shedding his mortal form to become a towering serpentine daemon prince of Slaanesh, a true creature of the warp. To approach the domain of Slaanesh is to walk into a dream of impossible beauty and exquisite horror. It is a realm woven from sensation itself, a place where the very air thrums with intoxicating musk, so rich and pervasive that it seeps into the flesh of any who draw near. This potent atmosphere quickens the heart and awakens the senses to a level beyond mortal comprehension. A gentle breeze upon the skin feels like a lover's caress, and the subtlest scent carries with it a symphony of memories and desires. But this heightened sensitivity is a double-edged sword, a vulnerability that the Dark Prince's minions are quick to exploit. At the heart of this surreal and ever-shifting landscape lies the Palace of Slaanesh, also known as the Palace of Pleasure. It is an impossibly tall fortress, a spire of entwined, living towers that writhe like serpents in congress. The structure is built upon a slender, twisted pillar of rock. Its very architecture, a sight so striking that it haunts the dreams of all who behold it. Unlike the fortresses of the other Chaos gods, Slaanesh does not seek to keep intruders out, but rather invites them in, taking great pleasure in watching them fall to the temptations that lie within. To reach the palace, one must traverse 6 concentric circles, each a domain representing one of the 6 seductions of Slaanesh. These circles are not guarded by armies, but by the very desires of those who dare to cross them. The first of these is the Circle of Avidity, a realm that preys upon greed. Here every imaginable treasure is laid bare. Trees and grass are formed from living gold, their leaves and blades shimmering in a gentle breeze. The ground is paved with rubies and emeralds, and loose gemstones glitter like common stones. To touch even the smallest coin is to be damned, to be so weighed down by avarice that one collapses unable to move, a prisoner of their own desire. Should an intruder resist the lure of wealth, they next encounter the Circle of Gluttony. This domain offers a feast for the senses, with rivers of exotic spirits and scented oils flowing through glorious pastures. Lavish foods and wines are presented, their tastes and aromas promising satisfaction beyond any mortal experience. To partake in even a single morsel is to be consumed by an insatiable hunger, to feast until the body fails, and becomes part of the banquet for the next unfortunate soul. The third circle is the circle of carnality, a place where the deepest desires of the heart are made manifest. Here, the air is thick with a musk that heightens every sensation. Visions gleaned from the subconscious are projected onto tents of spun dream, thread forming narrow corridors that brush against the traveler, a cloying, intimate embrace. Daemonettes, the common daemons of Slayesh, move through this space. Their forms a disturbing and alluring mix of masculine and feminine beauty, their hands replaced with sharp, crab-like claws. They offer comfort and pleasure, their kisses mixed with the bite of razor, sharp fangs. Their embraces both tender and piercing. To succumb here is to be lost in an endless, painful ecstasy. The fourth circle is that of paramountcy, a realm that tempts with the promise of absolute power. A traveler is met with the roars of an adoring crowd, their name chanted by millions. Visions of conquest and dominion fill the mind, the intoxicating feeling of the universe itself bowing to their will. Statues are erected in their honor, and they see themselves as rulers of entire sectors, their authority absolute. But this is a fragile illusion, a dream that shatters to reveal a desolate plain of black sludge and bone, a graveyard of those who sought ultimate control and found only enslavement to their own ambition. The penultimate circle is the circle of vainglory, a test of pride. It appears as a grand, serene forest filled with majestic trees and tranquil glades. In the center of each glade is a perfectly still pool that invites introspection. As one gazes into the water, they are shown visions of their ideal self, their greatest accomplishments magnified and perfected. To feel even a flicker of pride in this reflection is to be trapped for eternity, ensnared by thorny vines that coil around the neck and tear at the flesh. A final agonizing punishment for self. Obsession, the final and most perilous of the circles, is the circle of indolency, the abyss of despair. This is a place that offers a stark contrast to the overwhelming sensations of the other rings. Here, one finds a seemingly perfect and heavenly environment, a place of utter peace and tranquility. Every moment spent in this circle fills the intruder with a profound sense of bliss. The temptation is not of excess, but of release. To rest for a single moment, to give in to the perfect stillness, is to fall into a blissful coma, the soul slowly fading into an idle, eternal death. It is a final, subtle test, a reminder of a life without passion, a void that many who reach it beg to escape, pleading for any sensation, even pain. For the vanishingly few who can navigate all 6 circles, a final trial awaits, the palace of Slaanesh itself. One might expect such a place to be heavily defended, patrolled by legions of demons and mighty keepers of secrets. But there are no walls, no armies, only an inner courtyard filled with statues of exquisite realism and perfectly shaped trees. These statues are the final forms of those who succumbed to Slaanesh, Salur, their faces frozen in expressions of absolute joy. The palace itself is a structure of impossible geometry, with corridors that lead forward and backward at the same time, and staircases that ascend to lower levels. At the very heart of this impossible structure lies the throne room. The floor is a mirror, like substance that reflects not the physical self, but one, as deepest desires and hidden shames. The ceiling stretches into infinity, adorned with constellations that pulse in time with the collective heartbeat of all sentient life. And upon a throne that appears different to every observer sits the Dark Prince. It is said that no mortal can look upon Slayesh without instantly losing their soul, becoming a willing slave to the god, every whim. For in that moment of perfect agonizing revelation, They see the embodiment of all they have ever craved and all they will ever be. Within the timeless swirling chaos of the immaterium, there exists a state of perpetual conflict, a war waged on a scale incomprehensible to mortal minds. This is the great game, the eternal struggle for dominance between the four great gods of chaos. Their battlefield is the realm of chaos itself, a dimension of pure energy and raw emotion where their legions clash in endless battle. The prize they seek is not land or resources, but ultimate supremacy over the warp, and through it, the souls of every living thing. The great game is not a war with a clear beginning or a foreseeable end. It is a fundamental aspect of existence, a divine conflict where the players are the very concepts they embody. Khorne, the blood god, seeks universal slaughter. Tzeentch, the architect of fate, desires constant change and manipulation. Nurgle, the plague lord, wishes for all to embrace decay and despair. And Slaanesh, the prince of pleasure, craves endless excess and sensation. These ideals are irreconcilable, and so their war is eternal. The gods themselves rarely take to the field directly, for to do so is to show weakness and urgency. Instead, they command vast legions of daemons, extensions of their own will and power, to wage war on their behalf. These demonic armies are reflections of their masters. Nature's Khorne's legions are disciplined, martial forces built on a strict hierarchy of strength, from the mighty bloodthirsters down to the savage fleshhounds. Tzeentch's hosts are fluid and unpredictable, comprised of sorcerous lords of change and the ever-shifting horrors. Nurgle's armies are resilient and relentless, a tide of disgustingly resilient plague-bearers and lumbering great unclean ones. Slaanesh's forces are swift and seductive, a bewildering dance of demonettes and alluring keepers of secrets. The conflict is a dizzying pattern of shifting alliances and inevitable betrayals. They will form temporary pacts when their interests align. The most common alliance pits Khorne and Slaanesh against Tzeentch and Nurgle. This is a clash of fundamental philosophies. Khorne and Slaanesh represent action and passion, while Tzeentch and Nurgle embody more contemplative, long-term ambitions. However, no alliance is sacred. The moment a common goal is achieved or a better opportunity presents itself, these pacts shatter, and the gods turn on each other with renewed fury. He is particularly known for manipulating his rivals, once famously goading Khorne's greatest bloodthirster into attacking the blood god himself. The great game is far more important to the chaos gods than the fate of the mortal universe. The material realm is merely another battleground, a source of new souls, and a place to play out their divine rivalries. The endless wars of the 41st millennium are, in many ways, just a faint echo of the true conflict raging within the warp. The followers of chaos, whether they are demon primarchs or lowly cultists, are pawns in this cosmic struggle. Every skull taken for Khorne, every soul lost to despair for Nurgle, every intricate plot for Tzeentch, and every soul consumed by excess for Slaanesh strengthens their respective patrons in the great game. Khorne, the blood god, is perhaps the most straightforward of the players. His goal is simple: endless war and slaughter. He sits upon a great brass throne, atop a mountain of skulls that grows with every life taken in his name. He despises sorcery, viewing it as the weapon of cowards, and holds a special contempt for Slaanesh, whose decadence and pursuit of pleasure are antithetical to Khorne's martial pride. His legions are instruments of pure, uncomplicated violence, their battle cry a simple and honest declaration of their purpose. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, plays a far more subtle game. He is the god of hope, ambition, and change, and his strategies are built on intricate plots that can span millennia. For Taich, victory is not about simple destruction, but about manipulation and the subversion of his rivals' plans. He thrives on the endless possibilities of the great game, and it is said that he once grew so powerful that the other three gods were forced to unite against him. Rather than be defeated, Torch shattered his own staff of power, scattering its shards across reality as a myriad of spells, ensuring no other could ever wield such power again. His deepest rivalry is with Nurgle, for where Taich represents hope and change, Nurgle embodies despair and stagnation. Nurgle, the Lord of Decay, plays the longest game of all. He is the embodiment of resilience and the inevitable cycle of death and rebirth. His strategy is one of slow, inexorable corruption. He unleashes his plagues upon the realms of his rivals, patiently waiting as their lands and followers succumb to his joyful diseases. He views Khorne's rage as wasteful, Taich's scheming as futile, and Slaanch's quest for perfection as a denial of the beauty of decay. His goal is not to conquer, but to welcome all into his pestilential embrace, to make them part of his diseased and loving family. Slaanch, the youngest of the gods, is perhaps the most insidious. Born from the excess of the ancient Eldari, the Prince of Pleasure feeds on obsession and desire. Slaash's power is subtle. He can prey on the core natures of the other gods themselves. Khorne's bloodlust, Taich's endless scheming, and Nurgle's bountiful plagues are all forms of excess that ultimately feed the Dark Prince. This gives Slaash a unique and unnerving influence over his siblings, who are both drawn to and repulsed by him. He takes a perverse delight in agitating the ever-furious Khorne, whose simplistic brutality he finds dreadfully dull. And so, the game continues, a ceaseless, swirling dance of creation and destruction. The legions of the gods pour across the impossible landscapes of the warp, their battles causing reality itself to tremble. It is a war that can never truly be won, for if one god were to achieve ultimate victory, chaos itself would cease to be. The struggle is the purpose. It is the engine of chaos, the dark and terrible heart of a galaxy where there is only war. The galaxy is a mirror. It reflects the souls of its inhabitants in its nebulae and its dust clouds and its endless cold expanses. Every hope and every fear is given form. The powers of the Immaterium are not distant, alien things. They are born of mortal hearts, and so, when they manifest in the galaxy, they do so not as invaders from without, but as a corruption blooming from within. It does not begin with daemons. It does not begin with warbands of shrieking blood, mad warriors. It begins with a whisper, a thought, a feeling that finds fertile ground in the quiet desperation of a trillion souls. Consider a planetary governor. On a world so far from Terra, he feels his own insignificance. Every waking moment, he is burdened by tithes he cannot meet, by rebellions he cannot quell. He fears failure. He desires the power to restore order, to be seen as strong. This desire, this ambition, is a crack in the dam of his soul. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, takes notice. The first sign might be a new advisor, one who offers unconventional, yet effective, solutions. Then comes the discovery of a hidden library, filled with esoteric texts, promising forbidden knowledge and control. It all feels like providence, a reward for his diligence. He does not see the change in himself. He does not notice when the imperial Aquila in his throne room begins to subtly shift its shape, its wings twisting into new, unsettling patterns. Or think of a soldier, a guardsman on a forgotten front. He has seen horrors that defy words. He has watched his comrades die for a cause he no longer understands. All he feels is rage, a burning, helpless fury at the enemy, at his commanders, at the uncaring universe itself. That rage is a prayer that Khorne, the blood god, is always eager to answer. It starts with a new ferocity in battle. He fights with a strength he did not know he possessed, finding a grim joy in the slaughter. He begins to collect trophies. A skull here, a polished bone there. He tells himself it is to honor the fallen, or to intimidate the enemy. He does not recognize the rituals taking shape. He does not hear the name of his true God in the pulsing of blood in his ears. These individual seeds of corruption are often invisible. They grow in the dark, nurtured by the very structure of the Imperium, on worlds choked by pollution and plagued by disease, where billions live and die in squalor. Despair is the air they breathe. A prayer for an end to suffering, a plea for relief from unending pain, might be heard not by the Emperor, but by Nurgle. The Plague Father offers a strange kind of solace. He offers an end to pain by removing the ability to feel it. He offers community, a shared existence in glorious decay. A cult to Nurgle might begin as a hospice, a group of caregivers tending to the sick. They offer comfort, and soon they offer a cure, a blessing that stops the pain, but leaves the body bloated and diseased, a vessel for new and vibrant life. The faithful no longer fear death, for they see it as just another part of Grandfather, Nurgle as bountiful garden, and where there is art and beauty and the drive for perfection, Slaanesh finds an open door. An artist striving to create a masterpiece becomes obsessed. They push their limits, seeking new experiences to fuel their craft. Soon, the simple pleasure of creation is not enough. They need more intense sensations. They host salons and gatherings for the planet. Elite who are bored with their mundane lives. Together, they explore the frontiers of sensation, their pursuit of perfection, twisting into a lust for any experience, no matter how depraved. The first sign of their fall is not monstrous mutation. It is the haunting, exquisite beauty of their work, a beauty that feels somehow wrong. When these individual feelings coalesce, cults are born. They hide in plain sight, masquerading as social clubs, trade unions, or even sanctioned imperial prayer groups. A Khorne cult might form within a gladiatorial arena, or a warrior lodge within a planetary defense force. A Tinchan coven could be a secret society of scholars and politicians, meeting to share forbidden lore. A pleasure cult of Slaanesh might be the most exclusive social circle on a noble-esque court. These groups offer what the Imperium denies, a sense of purpose, a feeling of power, and a community for the outcast. The cult grows like a cancer. It spreads through families, through the halls of government. A heretic demagogue, a charismatic leader whose words are poison, sways the desperate masses. An iconarch carries a debased relic that warps reality around it, inspiring feverish devotion. Soon, the planet's institutions are hollowed out from within. Supply manifests are altered. Vox transmissions are rerouted. Security patrols are mysteriously absent when strange shipments arrive in the dead of night. The symbols of the Imperium are subtly altered or displayed alongside new, blasphemous icons. The air itself begins to feel different. The sky might take on a bruised purplish hue. The water might taste of rust and sweet decay. The people's prayers change, the familiar hymns twisted into new guttural chants. Eventually, the veil is torn. The masquerade ends. The corruption erupts into open rebellion. This is the moment. A world is truly lost. The planetary defense forces, long since subverted, turn on their loyalist comrades. The halls of power are painted in blood. from hidden shrines and desecrated cathedrals, the true nature of the cult is revealed. Mutants and madmen, long hidden in the underhives, pour into the streets, and then the warp answers. The sky splits open. A wound in reality bleeds raw chaos into the world. The ground pulses and shifts, as if the planet itself has become a living, breathing thing. Buildings warp into impossible, organic shapes. Statues weep blood. The laws of physics fray at the edges. Daemons pour through the rift, creatures of nightmare given form, drawn to the feast of mortal souls. A Slaaneshi world becomes a terrifying paradise of sensation, where every pleasure and every agony is amplified 1,000 times. A world claimed by Khorne becomes a perpetual battlefield, its continents drenched in blood, its mountains made of skulls. A world touched by Nurgle becomes a single, vast, rotting garden where plague and fecundity are one and the same, and a Tinchan world is a labyrinth of madness, a constantly shifting landscape of crystal and light, where reality itself is a lie. This is how chaos manifests, not as a simple invasion, but as a spiritual sickness. It reflects the desires buried in every mortal heart, the desire for strength, the desire for knowledge, the desire for pleasure, the desire for an end to pain. Chaos offers all these things, and in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is so little hope, its promises are the most seductive poison in the galaxy. Within the endless, churning sea of the immaterium, the wills of the great and terrible gods of chaos do not lie dormant. They are not abstract forces, content to merely observe the galaxy. Instead, their desires, their very natures, are given form, given life. These are the demonic legions, countless hosts of impossible beings, each a fragment of their creator, essence, an echo of a divine and terrible will. They are the never-born, for they are not born of flesh and blood, but are shaped from the raw emotion and psychic energy of the warp itself. Each demon is a living embodiment of its patron, Stomain, a soldier in a war that transcends reality, fighting in the great game between the gods or pouring into real space to visit their unique horrors upon the mortal plane. Let us first turn our gaze to the legions of Khorne, the Lord of Skulls. His armies are known as the Blood Legions, and their arrival is never subtle. It is a cataclysm of sound and fury. A demonic incursion of Khorne begins not with a whisper, but with a roar that tears through the veil of reality. The air grows thick with the coppery tang of blood and the hot, metallic scent of rage. The sky darkens, not with clouds, but with the shadow of outstretched, leathery wings. A deep, rhythmic chanting begins, a guttural count of skulls taken and blood spilled, a sound that reverberates not in the ears, but in the very bones of those who hear it. Then they appear. The ground trembles as the blood crushers charge forth, massive demonic beasts of brass and muscle, ridden by the stern-faced bloodletters. These are the core of the Legion, the foot soldiers of the Blood God. Each bloodletter is a projection of Khorne's unending rage, a wiry, red, skinned creature with a horned head and eyes that burn with pure hatred. They carry hellblades, wicked swords that do not just cut flesh, but sever the soul itself. They march in disciplined cohorts, a terrifying parody of mortal armies, their steps shaking the earth as they advance under a brass, colored sky. Leading these cohorts are the heralds of Khorne, the Bloodmasters, mightier bloodletters chosen for their exceptional prowess in slaughter. And sometimes, a truly singular champion emerges from the ranks, a demon whose name becomes a curse on the lips of mortals. One such being is you, Jewel, known to the galaxy as Skulltaker. Khorne, a sacred executioner. He is a duelist beyond compare, clad in a cloak woven from the skulls of his most worthy victims. He seeks out the greatest champions of the enemy, not to merely kill them, but to dismantle them, to shatter their limbs and leave them helpless before he claims their head for the Skull Throne. When Skulltaker takes to the field, it is said hush falls upon the battlefield, a moment of dreadful anticipation before the champion, as challenge is bellowed across the bloody landscape. Towering over all are the greater demons of Khorne, the mighty bloodthirsters. These are rage and slaughter given form, demigods of war wrapped in baroque brass armor, wielding massive axes and fiery whips. Their roar is the sound of a billion voices screaming in hate, and their arrival heralds the peak of the slaughter, a monsoon of blood that engulfs the battlefield entirely. From the rage of Khorne, we drift into the shimmering, ever-changing domain of Tynch, the architect of fate. His armies are the scintillating legions, and their appearance is a descent into madness, a vibrant, kaleidoscopic assault on the senses. A Tiantian incursion begins with impossible signs and portents. The laws of physics fray at the edges. The sky may turn to swirling, multi-colored fire, and whispers of forgotten secrets slither through the air. Reality itself seems to distort, melting and reforming into screaming, insane geometries. The foot soldiers of the Changer of Ways are the horrors, daemons that embody the chaotic and joyful nature of pure magic. Pink horrors are gleeful, capering things that bounce and shriek as they unleash bolts of raw warp energy, yet, when struck down, they do not simply die. They split apart, each pink horror becoming two smaller, angrier blue horrors, which in turn may split into tiny crackling brimstone horrors, turning the battlefield into a cascade of mutating, magical energy soaring. Above this madness are the screamers, blade-finned demonic beasts that fly in shoals like predatory fish, leaving trails of iridescent light in their wake. And guiding the hosts are the heralds of Tynch, powerful sorcerers who ride upon ornate discs of Tynch, levitating platforms of metal and magic. Among the most curious of Tynch's servants are the blue scribes, P. Terex, and Shirat, P. These two blue horrors were created by Tynch for a singular, vital purpose, to travel all of reality and record every spell in existence. Tynch, in a great battle with his brothers, shattered his own staff of power, its fragments scattering across space and time as spells. The scribes were made to reclaim this power, yet, in his paranoia, Tynch cursed them. P. Terex can write down any spell he sees, but he cannot read what he has written. Shirat, P. can read the scrolls, but he cannot understand their meaning, and so they journey eternally on their disk, squabbling and bickering, piling their ride high with scrolls as they unleash random magic upon anyone unfortunate enough to be nearby. The ultimate expressions of Tiantius' will are the Lords of Change, his greater daemons. They are vast, avian creatures of immense intelligence and sorcerous power, their minds a labyrinth of plots and schemes that span millennia. To gaze upon a Lord of Change is to have one, sanity blasted away by the sheer impossibility of its form. A creature robed in colors that have no name, its very presence rewriting the laws of the universe. Now, let us feel the cloying warmth and hear the gentle drone of Nurgle's legions. The plague legions do not burst into reality, they seep in. An incursion of Nurgle begins with a change in the air, a humid thickness that carries the sweet, sickly scent of decay. A sense of weary resignation descends, a feeling of inevitable entropy. The world grows quiet, save for the buzzing of innumerable flies and a distant gurgling sound, like a corpse too long submerged. The core of Nurgle's armies are the plague bearers, shambling, one-eyed demons crafted from the souls of mortals who succumbed to Nurgle. Rot. They are the tallymen of the plague god, obsessively counting the diseases and infections they spread. Their voices drone in a nasal chant, a litany of pestilence. Then there are the Nurglings, tiny, mischievous sprites of filth that are born from the boils and pustules of greater daemons. They are the giggling, playful children of Nurgle, tumbling and splashing through pools of bile, embodying the morbid joy of their grandfather. A special place in this hierarchy is reserved for Epidemius, the tallyman of Nurgle. He is one of the 7 proctors of pestilence, borne aloft on a rotten palanquin by a silent, focused brood of Nurglings. His task is eternal, to catalogue every single disease, plague, and affliction unleashed by his master. With a quill made from bone, he scribbles onto parchment of cured flesh, and as he records the demise of mortals, the power of Nurgle's servants on the battlefield grows. The only sound he appreciates is the striking of a gong by his attendants, whenever a soul is successfully ushered into Nurgle's welcoming embrace. The grandest of Nurgle's children are the great unclean ones. These greater daemons are loving in their foulness, massive, bloated monstrosities that are crafted in the image of Nurgle himself. They see themselves as shepherds to their demonic flocks and loving parents to their mortal followers, bestowing the gifts of disease with a hearty, gurgling laugh. Their presence alone can fell armies, a miasma of soul, rotting despair, and physical corruption. Finally, we turn to the intoxicating symphony of Slaanesh, the dark prince of excess. The legions of excess do not merely attack, they perform. Their arrival is a sensory overload, a whirlwind of exquisite agony and forbidden pleasure. A strange, intoxicating musk fills the air, and a hypnotic, discordant music begins to play, plucking at the souls of mortals. The battlefield itself seems to shimmer and shift, caught between brutal reality and a debauched dreamscape. The core of these legions are the Daemonettes, graceful, androgynous beings of terrifying speed and cruelty. They dance across the battlefield, their slashing claws a blur, their laughter like the chiming of delicate, yet razor-sharp glass. They are joined by the fiends of Slaanesh, Bizarre, Centaur, like creatures that emit a soporific musk, lulling their prey into a stupor before tearing them apart with their dissecting claws. A truly unique soul in the Dark Prince's court is the Mask of Slaanesh. Once the most favored handmaiden of the god, she made a terrible mistake. After Slaanesh was defeated and humiliated in a battle with Khorne, the mask tried to cheer her master with her most dazzling dance. But the grieving god saw only mockery in her perfect movements, and cursed her to dance for all eternity. Never resting, her every performance a reenactment of Slaanesh's greatest victories now. She moves across time and space, a tragic, eternal performer. Her dance is so powerful, it compels all who witness it, demon and mortal alike, to join in the horrific pageant. Their bodies pushed beyond all limits until they collapse in blissful exhaustion and agony. The greater daemons of Slaanesh. They are lithe, multi-limbed beings of sublime horror, faster than the eye can track, their whispers promising untold pleasures, while their claws deliver ultimate pain. They are the masters of sensation, the dark heart of the Legion of Excess, turning the act of war into a grand, terrible, and beautiful symphony of suffering and ecstasy. To receive a gift from a chaos god is to accept a drop of poison in a golden chalice. It promises to quench a desperate thirst, but the price is a corrosion of the soul, a twisting of the flesh, and an eternity of servitude. The ruinous powers do not give freely. Every boon is a hook, every blessing a chain, drawing the supplicant ever deeper into the labyrinth of damnation. The nature of these gifts is as varied and as terrible as the gods themselves, each a perfect reflection of their desires and their infinite cruelty. Consider the path of a warrior who yearns for strength, who prays for the power to overcome his enemies. His desperate pleas may echo in the warp until they reach the brass citadel, the domain of Khorne, the Lord of Skulls. Khorne cares not for subtlety, only for the flowing of blood. A gift from the blood god is direct, brutal, and unambiguous. The warrior's muscles might swell with unnatural power, his bones hardening to the density of iron. His skin could take on a leathery texture or sprout horns like a great bull. In the heat of battle, he might find his very blood has been replaced by molten brass, a searing liquid that cauterizes his wounds even as it spills upon the battlefield, burning his foes. Khorne may bestow a demon weapon, a snarling axe that screams for slaughter, its edge never dulling as it feasts on the souls of the slain. Or perhaps his own favored weapon will fuse to his hand, the metal and flesh becoming one inseparable tool of murder. The greatest of Khorne, as champions, might be granted a collar of Khorne, a spiked brass ring that makes them immune to the cowardly sorcery of psykers, ensuring that all battles are decided by martial prowess alone. These gifts are intoxicating. The warrior feels invincible, a whirlwind of destruction on the battlefield. Every victory, every skull taken, fuels his rage and brings him closer to his god. But the curse is woven into the very fabric of the gift. The heightened strength becomes an unending burning rage that knows no friend or foe. The warrior, who once fought to protect his home, now finds himself turning on his comrades in a fit of uncontrollable bloodlust. If the slaughter ceases for even a moment, the flesh-fused weapon becomes a constant, agonizing reminder of his pact. He can never again hold a gentle hand or lay down his arms. The molten blood in his veins is a fire that never cools, driving him to ever greater acts of violence simply to appease the inferno within. His thoughts narrow until only one imperative remains: kill. He becomes a slave to the axe, a vessel for the god's unending fury, his individuality scoured away by the sheer brutal power he once craved. He is no longer a man, but an engine of slaughter, his personal wars forgotten, his only purpose to add skulls to an ever-growing throne. Then there is the scholar, the politician, the seeker of forbidden knowledge, who finds their ambition whispering into the domain of Tainch, the changer of the ways. Tainch is the master of plots, magic, and mutation, and his gifts are as duplicitous and unpredictable as he is. The ambitious soul might be granted incredible sorcerous power, the ability to bend the raw stuff of the warp to their will. They might gain a glimpse of the future, able to navigate the labyrinthine paths of destiny to achieve their goals. Tainch is the great conspirator, and he rewards those who would unravel the secrets of the universe. Yet, the price of Tainch's favor is sanity itself. The visions of the future are often contradictory, maddeningly complex, or show truths too terrible for a mortal mind to bear. The sorcerer's power is a torrent of raw chaos, and the slightest misstep can result in catastrophic, uncontrolled mutation. Tainch's gifts are rarely just metaphysical. They manifest in the flesh. An extra eye might sprout, seeing not the material realm, but the swirling currents of the warp. Feathers might burst from the skin, or a limb might twist into a writhing tentacle. These changes are a constant physical reminder of the god's influence, forever altering the supplicant. At first, these mutations may seem beneficial: an extra arm to cast a spell, wings to fly above the battlefield. But Tainch is the god of change, and change is relentless. The flesh continues to shift and writhe, the body becoming an ever-mutating canvas of horror until the original form is lost entirely. Shrieking chaos spawn, a fate many of Teach's followers eventually face. The very knowledge they sought becomes a poison, their minds shattered by the infinite conflicting schemes of their patron, their bodies a testament to the terrible, beautiful chaos of endless, meaningless change. Perhaps the most insidious of the gods is Nurgle, the grandfather of pestilence, who offers not power or knowledge, but release. His appeal is to the desperate, the diseased, and the dying. When a world is ravaged by plague, when a body is racked with incurable illness, the sufferer's pleas for mercy may be answered by Nurgle. His primary gift is the removal of pain and despair. He does not cure the disease. He makes the victim embrace it. The follower of Nurgle becomes a vessel for his sacred contagions, their body bloating and rotting, their skin erupting in weeping sores. Yet they feel no agony. They become immune to all pain and injury, their putrescent flesh able to absorb tremendous punishment. The curse is the gift. To be blessed by Nurgle is to become a living plague, a walking corpse animated by the god's foul energies. The follower's body becomes a garden of disease, a host to countless infections that they are compelled to spread. They see their hideous transformations as blessings, their weeping boils and necrotic flesh as marks of their god's paternal love. They become jovial and content in their own decay, surrounded by the constant drone of plague flies and the stench of death. They are trapped in a cycle of endless rot and rebirth, their souls bound to the Lord of Decay. They lose their fear of death, but in doing so, they lose their humanity. They become instruments of a slow, inevitable entropy, spreading misery and sickness across the galaxy, not out of malice, but out of a twisted, loving desire to share the grandfather's gifts with all. The story of the Death Guard Legion is a chilling testament to this. A fleet of once proud space marines tricked into Nurgle's embrace, now eternally trudging through the galaxy, their bloated power armor containing little more than diseased sludge and endless despair, a mockery of their former glory. Finally, there is Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, the god of excess and perfection. Slaanesh offers not brute force or arcane secrets, but the fulfillment of all desire. The artist seeking to create the perfect masterpiece, the warrior wishing to achieve ultimate grace in battle, the sybarite yearning for a new sensation. All may find themselves drawn into the Dark Prince's embrace. A gift from Slaanesh is an amplification of the senses. The follower experiences the universe with an intensity that is both ecstatic and agonizing. They may be granted impossible speed and grace, their movements a blur of deadly perfection. Their appearance may be transformed, becoming impossibly beautiful and alluring, capable of captivating the will of others with a mere glance. The curse of Slaanesh is an unquenchable thirst. Each new sensation, each new peak of ecstasy, only serves to make the previous ones dull and mundane. The follower is driven to seek ever more extreme experiences, to push the boundaries of pain and pleasure until the two become indistinguishable. The artist becomes a torturer, using flesh and bone as their medium. The warrior no longer fights for victory, but for the thrilling sensation of a blade slicing through flesh, their enemy, or their own. The search for perfection becomes a grotesque parody, with followers engaging in extreme self-mutilation and body modification in a desperate attempt to achieve some new, impossible ideal. They become addicted to the agony and ecstasy of their existence. Their souls forfeit to a god who sees them as nothing more than playthings. Lucius the Eternal, a champion of the Emperor's children, embodies this curse perfectly. Cursed by Slaanesh, he is reborn in the body of whoever slays him, doomed to an endless cycle of death and resurrection, a dance of agony and glory that feeds his patron end's insatiable hunger for sensation. In the end, the gifts of the Chaos Gods are all the same. They are the promise of a shortcut to power, knowledge, release, or perfection. But the path they offer leads only to slavery. The price of their power is the very self the mortals sought to elevate. The boon and the curse are two sides of the same coin, a gilded trap from which there is no escape, a slow, terrible descent into a bliss of damnation, where the laughter of thirsting gods echoes for all eternity. Before the great darkness, there was a dream of unity, of reason, and of a future where humanity would be master of its own destiny. At the heart of this dream stood a single luminous figure, the Emperor of mankind. For millennia, he had walked among humanity, a silent guardian, a hidden guide, watching civilizations rise and fall. He had seen humanity's potential for greatness and its equal capacity for self-destruction, a vulnerability the Chaos Gods had exploited since the dawn of consciousness. He knew that for humanity to survive and evolve, it had to be severed from the ruinous whispers of the warp. This was not a war he could fight with armies alone. It was a battle for the very soul of his species. His first great stand began on Terra, the cradle of humanity, long before he took to the stars. The planet was a fractured ruin, a patchwork of warring techno, barbarian states, and superstitious cults. The Emperor understood that faith, in any form, was a doorway for chaos. It provided the emotional energy, the belief, that gave the Dark Gods their power. So he began his unification wars, not just as a conquest, but as a crusade of secularism. He brought forth the imperial truth, a doctrine of science and reason that declared there were no gods, no demons, only the explainable and the not yet genetically engineered soldiers who were the precursors to the Space Marines. He systematically dismantled the planet as old religions. Churches were torn down, cults were purged, and any who clung to the old ways of superstition were made to kneel before the light of reason or be extinguished by it. It was a brutal, necessary act of surgery, cutting away the diseased flesh of belief to save the body of humanity. With Terra unified, the Emperor looked to the scattered stars. Humanity had colonized the galaxy during a golden age of technology. But that age was long gone, and countless worlds were isolated, lost, or had fallen into barbarism. This was the Great Crusade, the grandest expression of the Emperor's vision. He would reunite all of lost humanity under a single banner and a single unifying belief system, the imperial truth. But he could not do this alone. For this monumental task, he needed generals, sons forged in his own image, beings of immense power and intellect who could lead his armies to victory. This was the Primarch Project, his greatest and most ambitious undertaking. Using his own genetic material and arcane sciences derived from the warp itself, he crafted 20 superhuman sons. This was a perilous gamble, using the power of his enemy to create the weapons he would use against them. The Chaos Gods, ever watchful, saw the threat these beings represented. They could not allow the Emperor to succeed. In a great vortex of warp energy, they reached into the Emperor's hidden laboratory beneath the Himalayan mountains and spirited the infant Primarchs away, scattering them across the galaxy. The Emperor's creations were now lost, each landing on a different world to be raised in a different culture, exposed to different hardships, and shaped by forces beyond his control. Undeterred, the Emperor pressed on. He created the Legions Astartes, the Space Marines, using the genetic templates of his lost sons. These legions became the vanguard of the Great Crusade, pushing back the darkness and reclaiming lost human worlds. And as they journeyed, they found the Primarchs. One by one, each had grown into a legendary figure on their adopted homeworld, and the Emperor placed them at the head of their respective legions. For a time, the dream flourished. The Imperium expanded at a breathtaking rate, a beacon of order and reason in a hostile galaxy. Yet, the Chaos Gods had not been idle. The scattering of the Primarchs was not a random act of spite. It was a calculated move. They had subtly tampered with the infant demigods, seeding within their perfect genetics the flaws of human emotion: pride, jealousy, resentment, and a desperate need for their father's approval. The Emperor, for all his wisdom, saw his sons more as perfect tools than as children. He demanded loyalty and competence, but offered little in the way of fatherly affection. This emotional distance created cracks in the foundations of his grand design, cracks that the Chaos Gods would expertly exploit. They whispered into the ears of the Primarchs, preying on their insecurities and stoking their ambitions. Lorgar, who craved faith, was shown new gods to worship when the Emperor rejected his devotion. Horus, the favored son, was shown visions of a future where his father cast him aside, a future where the Emperor achieved godhood and left his sons as mere footnotes in history. While the Great Crusade raged, the Emperor was working on his true masterstroke, his final solution to the problem of chaos. Deep beneath the Imperial Palace on Terra, he labored on the Webway project. The Webway was a labyrinthine dimension, a network of tunnels that existed outside the chaos, infested warp created by an ancient alien race. The Emperor's plan was to create a human extension of this network, a way for humanity to travel between the stars without ever having to risk the perils of warp travel. This would cut humanity off from the Chaos Gods entirely, starving them of the emotional sustenance they needed to exist. Humanity could then evolve into a fully psychic race under his guidance, safe from demonic predation. It was a project of such importance that the Emperor withdrew from the Great Crusade, leaving its command to his most trusted son, Horus. This was the moment the Dark Gods had been waiting for. The tragedy that followed was born from a son's desperate attempt to do the right thing. The Primarch Magnus the Red, a powerful psyker, discovered Horus' betrayal. Forbidden from using his psychic powers to contact his father, Magnus did so anyway, believing the warning was too important. He cast a powerful spell across the galaxy, shattering the psychic wards the Emperor had placed around his secret Webway project. The breach was catastrophic. A tide of demons poured into the nascent human Webway, turning the Emperor's greatest hope into a gateway to hell. The Emperor was now trapped. He had to use the immense power of his mind to hold the demonic tide at bay, to prevent Terra itself from being consumed. He was forced to sit upon the Golden Throne, a complex arcane device that amplified his psychic abilities, becoming a living lock on a demonic gate. It was at this moment of weakness that Horus, now fully a creature of chaos, struck. The Horus heresy erupted, a galactic civil war that pitted brother against brother, legion against legion. The Emperor's dream burned. The final confrontation came aboard Horus' flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. Empowered by all four Chaos Gods, Horus was a being of unimaginable power. He and the Emperor fought a duel that raged in both the material world and the warp. The Emperor, still seeing the glimmer of his son within the monstrous Warmaster, held back and was mortally wounded. Only when Horus struck down a lone Imperial soldier did the Emperor finally unleash the full, devastating power of his mind, obliterating his son's soul to prevent it from being claimed by chaos. They carried the Emperor's broken body back to Terra and interred him within the Golden Throne. The arcane machine that was meant to be the key to humanity's salvation became its eternal life support system. For 10,000 years, he has sat in that silent vigil. He is a corpse on a throne, yet his mind is a raging fire in the warp. His psychic might powers the Astronomicon, the psychic beacon that allows Imperial ships to navigate the galaxy. His will maintains the psychic shield that protects Terra from the demonic hordes still clawing at the broken webway gate beneath his palace. Every day, the souls of 1,000 psychers are sacrificed to the Golden Throne, their life force fueling the ancient machinery that keeps the Emperor's own soul anchored to his shattered body. He is in a state of unending agony, his consciousness a battlefield where he fights a lonely, eternal war against the triumphant laughter of the thirsting gods. The ultimate irony is that the imperial truth is dead. The Imperium he created now worships him as the god. Emperor, the very thing he fought to eradicate. The Lectitio Divinitatis, a text written by the traitor Lorgar declaring the Emperor, became the foundation for the new state religion. His struggle is now a silent one, a war fought in the shadows of the mind and the depths of the warp. The last defiant stand of a father who dreamed of a galaxy of light, only to be imprisoned in eternal darkness. The slow, creeping tendrils of chaos rarely announce themselves with thunder and lightning. Instead, they manifest in the quiet moments of a mortal soul as deepest desires and most profound fears. The journey into the serpent-esque coil is not a sudden fall, but a gradual, almost imperceptible slide. It begins not with malice, but often with the most noble of intentions. A governor desperate to protect his people from famine might turn to forbidden agricultural rites, seeking a miracle to save his world. A soldier, haunted by the faces of fallen comrades, might yearn for the strength to ensure no one under his command ever dies again. A scholar, frustrated by the Imperium's dogmatic suppression of knowledge, might seek out prescribed texts, believing that true enlightenment lies hidden in the shadows. These are the seeds from which corruption blooms, understandable, even laudable desires that the dark gods are all too eager to nurture. The whispers of chaos are a constant, subtle hum beneath the surface of reality. They are not roaring commands, but gentle suggestions tailored to the specific anxieties and ambitions of the individual. To the beleaguered general on the brink of defeat, the voice of Khorne is not a demand for slaughter, but a promise of victory. It speaks of the strength to defend his soldiers, the power to crush his enemies, and the glory that comes with martial supremacy. It offers a simple, direct solution to a complex problem. Embrace the warrior's rage, and all obstacles will fall. The general, seeing no other way, might take this first, seemingly pragmatic step. He pushes his soldiers harder, demands more from them, and celebrates the brutal efficiency of their attacks. The line between righteous fury and bloodlust begins to blur, and with each victory, the whispers of Khorne grow a little louder, a little more insistent. Sight, the changer of ways, operates in the realm of the mind. His temptations are not of the flesh, but of the intellect. He preys upon the curious, the ambitious, and those who believe they are clever enough to outwit fate. A magos of the Adeptus Mechanicus, for example, might be working on a technology that could revolutionize the Imperium, but finds their progress stalled by the rigid doctrines of their faith. Tynch offers a key, a piece of forgotten data, a glimpse into a forbidden schematic. It is a small transgression, the Magos tells themselves, a minor heresy for the greater good. But this single act of intellectual defiance is the first thread in an intricate web of deceit. The Magos become secretive, paranoid, and increasingly reliant on the forbidden knowledge that Tainch provides. They see themselves as a visionary, a pioneer, but in reality, they are becoming a pawn in the great deceiver's endless game, their genius twisted to serve a purpose they can no longer comprehend. For those who suffer, for those who have lost all hope, Nurgle offers a different kind of solace. He does not promise to heal their wounds or cure their diseases. Instead, he offers an end to their pain through acceptance. Imagine a medic on a plague-ridden world surrounded by the dead and the dying. She has exhausted her supplies, her knowledge, and her faith. She prays for a miracle, but no miracle comes. It is then that she hears the gentle, wheezing voice of Nurgle. He does not offer a cure, for disease is a part of life, says Great Cycle. Instead, he offers resilience, the strength to endure, and a sense of belonging in a community of fellow sufferers. The medic, broken and desperate, might begin to see a strange beauty in the resilience of the plague. Ridden, she might start to believe that this is a new form of life, a new beginning. She embraces the grandfather's gifts, and in doing so, becomes a vector of his pestilential blessings, spreading his love to all she encounters. Her desire to heal has been warped into a desire to share her newfound, grotesque form of life. And then there is Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, who offers the most intoxicating poison of all. Slaanesh's appeal is to the artist, the poet, the musician, and anyone who seeks perfection in their craft. A master sculptor, striving to create a statue of unparalleled beauty, might find himself unable to achieve the perfection his mind, as eye can see. Slaanesh whispers in his ear, offering him the inspiration, the skill, the vision to create a masterpiece that will be remembered for all time. The sculptor, driven by his passion, accepts. His work becomes sublime, his fame grows, but he is no longer satisfied. He needs to create something even more beautiful, more shocking, more extreme. He begins to experiment with new materials, with living flesh, with the very essence of pain and pleasure. His art becomes a monument to his own damnation, a testament to the corrupting influence of the Prince of Pleasure. His desire to create beauty has become an obsession with sensation, a bottomless pit of hedonistic desire. The fall of an individual can be a tragedy, but the fall of an entire world is a cataclysm. It often begins with a secret society, a hidden cult that starts small, recruiting members from the disaffected and the disillusioned. These cults offer a sense of community, a purpose, and a promise of a better life. Offer sacrifices to their dark patrons, and slowly, methodically, work their way into positions of power. A cult of Khorne might start as a gladiatorial fighting pit, a place where the downtrodden can vent their frustrations. A coven dedicated to Tainch might begin as a philosophical society, a gathering of intellectuals who believe they are seeking enlightenment. A plague cult of Nurgle might arise in the underbelly of a hive city, offering comfort and acceptance to the sick and the destitute. And a pleasure cult of Slaanesh might masquerade as an exclusive social club for the wealthy and the decadent. These cults grow in the shadows, their influence spreading like a disease through the body politic of the world. By the time the authorities of the Imperium become aware of the threat, it is often too late. The cult has infiltrated the military, the government, the church. The planetary defense forces turn on their own people, and the world is plunged into a bloody civil war. In the end, the planet is dragged into the warp, a new jewel in the crown of the Chaos Gods. The story of the world of Sorora is a chilling example of this process. The planet was a bastion of imperial faith, a shining example of piety and devotion. But beneath the surface, a cult of Slaanesh had taken root among the planet's nobility. They indulged in secret debaucheries, their desire forever, greater sensations leading them down a path of depravity and corruption. When their activities were finally discovered, they did not repent. Instead, they embraced their new god and led their world in a bloody rebellion against the Imperium. Sorora is now a demon world, a paradise of pain and pleasure, a monument to the corrupting power of the Prince of Pleasure. The serpent's coil, then, is not some external force that can be fought with bolters and chainswords alone. It is a reflection of the darkness that resides within all mortal beings. It is the ambition that twists into tyranny, the desire that curdles into obsession, the hope that sours into despair. The Chaos Gods are not just demons in the warp. They are the personification of the most powerful and primal emotions of all sentient races. To fight chaos is to fight a part of oneself. It is a battle that is waged not only on the blood-soaked fields of the 41st millennium, but also in the quiet corridors of every mortal heart. The serpent's coil is a constant threat, a promise of power, and a whisper of damnation. And in the grim darkness of the far future, the whispers are very, very loud. The great ocean of the immaterium is not an external place. It is not a hellish dimension separate from the galaxy of life. Instead, it is a mirror, a perfect, terrible mirror, reflecting everything that is and everything that could be, before the first thinking creature looked up at the stars, before the first flicker of self-awareness ignited in the cold dark. The warp was calm. It was a sea of potential, a quiet, gray abyss of formless energy. Much like the ancient myths of old Earth spoke of a primordial chaos, a gaping void from which all things would eventually be born. This was the Sea of Souls in its infancy. Not good, not evil. It simply was. It held no shape, because there was no mind to give it shape. It felt no emotion, because there was no heart to feel. Then life began, not with a bang, but with a whisper, a single fleeting thought from a creature on a long dead world. Fear, fear of the predator in the dark. That fear, a tiny spark of psychic energy, did not simply vanish, it rippled into the Sea of Souls. It was a drop of black ink in clear water. Alone, it was nothing. But it was not alone for long. Soon, other thoughts followed. Food, hope, the fierce, desperate hope of a parent protecting its young Raj asterisk. The hot, sharp fury of a warrior defending their tribe. Fui love, fui ambition, fiti spare, every thought, every feeling from every living, sentient being in the nascent galaxy began to pool in the immaterium. This was the beginning of what ancient Terran philosophers would call a collective consciousness, an ocean of shared ideas and feelings, connecting all life on a level they could not perceive. At first, these were just currents, eddies and flows in the psychic sea. But life is a creature of habit. Mortals are beings of repetition. The same emotions, the same core desires, were felt again and again, billions, then trillions of times over, across 1,000,000 worlds. And this repetition created a powerful effect, a phenomenon known as resonance. Think of a simple string on a musical instrument. If you pluck it, it vibrates at a certain frequency. If another sound wave hits it at that exact same frequency, the string begins to vibrate more strongly. It resonates. The energy is amplified. Imagine this on a galactic scale. The raw emotion of rage is a frequency. Every time a living being feels that rage, it sends that frequency into the warp. The more beings that feel it, the stronger that frequency becomes. The currents of rage in the warp begin to resonate, to amplify, creating a feedback loop. The growing presence of rage in the warp makes it easier for mortals to feel rage, and their rage in turn feeds the growing presence in the warp. This is the birth of a god. Horn is not a demon sitting on a throne of skulls, because he is inherently evil. Korn Toin Sai, the resonance of every act of violence, every surge of adrenaline, every desperate cry for victory since the dawn of time. He is the echo of the first hunter, S shout, and the last soldier, S dying curse, amplified over billions of years into a singular, ravenous consciousness. Teach is the crystallization of hope and ambition. Every mortal who has ever looked at their fate and wished to change it has fed the changer of ways, the scholar seeking forbidden knowledge, the politician weaving a complex plan, the desperate farmer praying for rain, their hope for a different future, their ambition to rise above their station. All of it resonates together in the warp. Teach is the grand sum of every gamble, every lie told for a greater good, and every prayer whispered for a miracle. He is change itself because life, in its endless struggle, always desires change. Nurgle, the great lord of decay, is perhaps the most misunderstood. He is not born of a desire for sickness. He is born from the desperate, unyielding will to sorely live, the fear of death, the agony of disease, and the stubborn refusal to simply give up and die. That is Nurgle. Every being that has ever endured immense suffering, every culture that has faced a relentless plague and still clung to existence, they have nourished him. He is the embodiment of despair. Yes, but also of the strange serenity that comes with acceptance. He is the reflection of life. Paradox, that to live is to begin decaying, and that in decay there is often a terrifying form of persistence. And Slaanesh, the youngest, the most vibrant, is the echo of every sensation. The Dark Prince is the god of excess, not merely of pleasure, born from the collective psyche of the ancient Eldari civilization as they sought to perfect their existence. Slaanesh embodies the peril of achieving one's desires, the artist's pursuit of the perfect sculpture, the lover's quest for the ultimate embrace, the musician's search for the impossible note. These are all beautiful things, but when pursued without limit, without restraint, they become a roaring fire that consumes everything. Slaanesh is the reflection of civilization, its greatest strength and its most profound weakness, the drive for more, the belief that there is always a new height to achieve, a new pleasure to experience, a new boundary to cross. The relationship between the galaxy's inhabitants and these immense beings is not a simple one. It is often described as parasitic, where the gods feed on mortal souls and give nothing but ruin in return. But the truth is more complex, more disturbing. It is a form of dark symbiosis. The gods are a part of the galaxy's ecosystem. They are a mirror to its soul. Without the ambition of mortals, Tinch would be a formless, meaningless whisper. Without their rage, Khorne would have no power. The events of history are not just shaped by the gods. They shape the gods in turn. Consider the historical phenomenon of mass hysteria on old Earth. Events like the Dancing Plague of 1518, where hundreds of people were compelled to dance, sometimes until they died. Scholars theorize this was caused by extreme stress, famine, and deep-seated fears. Now, imagine that on a planetary scale, a world gripped by a psychic plague of despair, its people wailing and weeping until their sorrow gives physical form to the servants of Nurgle, a conquering crusade fueled by righteous fury, whose collective rage manifests as a storm of blood in the warp, pleasing Khorne. These are not supernatural invasions in the truest sense. They are outbreaks, the material universe catching a fever from the psychic energies of its own inhabitants. This is the great, terrible secret of chaos. The gods are not an external threat. They are not invaders from another reality. They are us. They are a monument to every feeling, every thought, every dream, and every nightmare the living have ever had. They are the shadow cast by the light of life. Just as ancient Zoroastrian myths spoke of a cosmic battle between a force of light and a force of darkness, so too does the galaxy struggle with its own reflection. But the darkness was not born from a separate void. The shadow can only exist because there is a light to cast it. The Imperium of Man, in its desperate struggle for order, generates more fear, hatred, and rage than any other civilization. In its fight against chaos, it feeds chaos more than any other patron. Every prayer to the god, Emperor for deliverance, is a whisper of hope that Tynch can twist. Every guardsman says fear of the alien is a morsel for the powers that be. Every act of violent xenophobia is a prayer to the blood god. The Imperium is a vast, resonant chamber, amplifying the very energies it seeks to destroy. And so, the reflection in the dark mirror of the warp stares back. It is a monstrous face, a terrifying visage of horns, decay, and screaming madness. But it is our face. It is the face of all life, with all its glories and all its horrors, amplified to the power of gods. The story of chaos is not the story of demons and devils. It is the story of mortals. It is our story, written in fire across the heavens, for all of eternity. And in the quiet stillness of the void, the mirror waits, patiently, for the next reflection, the next emotion, the next soul, to add its whisper to the unending cosmic scream.